In the year 21 of the Sosa calendar, a horrific disaster strikes the kingdom of Jianvan. Blood and chaos paint the streets. The few survivors lose their minds as terror and raw panic twist every single face left standing. Outside, a horde of monsters completely surrounds humanity's very last fortress. The remaining survivors gather inside, while exhausted soldiers push their grim reality aside to cling to one final, fragile shred of hope. Yet the true nightmare hasn't even arrived. Suddenly, a deafening screech and the violent beat of massive wings shatter the air. Looming before their eyes are countless colossal beasts, radiating an absolutely overwhelming presence as they swarm in. Seconds later, an enormous beast slowly gathers glowing magic in its gaping maw, then fires a devastating blast straight down at the terrified crowd. That single strike wipes out everything in its path, reducing the fortress's heavy iron gates to absolute splinters. Seizing the moment, the monsters outside flood in like a violent storm, weapons drawn as they threaten every single life remaining inside. Lives are snuffed out easier than a candle flame. Those towering beasts crush tiny human bodies one by one, forcing everyone to face a brutal, inescapable doom that's unraveling right before our very eyes. They breach every corner of the fort, sending terrified soldiers running for their lives in total chaos. Corpses litter the ground as fallen soldiers lie scattered everywhere, yet the beasts refuse to stop hunting until every last human is wiped out. But amid the choking smoke and raging fire, a tense, anxious voice suddenly cuts through the madness. Nearby, the lucky few who were pulled from the wreckage lie heavily bandaged and bleeding, while the uninjured rush to nurse them. As one pale soldier receives desperate treatment, that urgent voice rings out again. It's Quill, scanning the room before shouting at the crowd, telling them he will save him and to bring the wounded over right now. Another mangled soldier is dragged in, and Quill quickly drops to his knees, channeling healing magic to patch him up. He urges them to hurry before it's too late, but an assistant nearby tries to stop him. The gate is about to burst. He pleads, begging Quill to run. Seeing the danger close in, he stresses that a high-tier healer like him has absolutely no business staying on the deadly front lines. Those words snap Quill's patience. He whirls around and snaps back. Is he seriously suggesting he should just abandon these people? He grits his teeth, feeling the heavy weight of duty on his shoulders. If he keeps healing, he can prevent humanity's extinction. That grim moment flashes him back to his parents' parting words, reminding him of his duty to the world and the incredible power he holds. They told him everyone's lives rested on his shoulders, crowning him the world's greatest healer. Suddenly, a frantic cry drags him right out of those deep memories. Someone shouts, looking for Quill at the entrance. Following the voice, he spots General Oi Fong. His arm is completely severed, his breath shallow and fading, making Quill gasp in sheer disbelief at his commander's state. Shaking off the shock, Quill barks to lay him down. The moment the general is lowered, a panicked soldier asks with desperate worry in his eyes. Can the general be saved? He asks, knowing the front line is doomed without him. Quill responds instantly with firm resolve, promising to save him as he drops down and channels his magic. Heavy tension suffocates the crowded room. Quill speaks with absolute certainty. Saving people is the exact reason he stands here today. Quill rapidly gathers mana around himself and the general. A glowing green magic circle flares beneath them, erupting into a brilliant pillar of light that leaves the onlookers completely breathless. That warm energy wraps around the severed limb, slowly weaving a brand new arm from scratch. Joints, fingers, and even the torn flesh piece themselves back together under the magic before the dazzling green glow finally fades away. The general's eyes slowly flutter open. He sits up, staring at his fully restored arm while the surrounding soldiers erupt into wild cheers, praising Quill's legendary power. He stares blankly at the limb that was just chopped off, now completely flawless without a single scar. Watching, Quill smiles with pure relief, stating he will heal any wound, no matter how severe. Humanity's victory is finally within reach, he adds. But the general doesn't reply. Instead, his pupils tremble as he stares at his hand. Then, out of nowhere, he drives a brutal punch straight into Quill's face. Wait, why is he punching his savior? Quill takes the full blow, completely caught off guard. The general squeezes his new fist pale, growling that Quill just did something completely useless. Quill clutches his bruised face, shocked. He asks why he got hit, while a brave soldier steps forward, questioning what on earth the general is doing. But the general only grows more furious, roaring for them to shut up as he swiftly draws the sword from his hip, leaving Quill completely frozen in fear. Without warning, the mad general drives his blade deep into Quill's shoulder, making him shriek in pure agony. The man's crazed face and terrifying murderous eyes make Quill tremble as he asks why he wouldn't just let him die. He twists the sword deeper, forcing an agonizing groan from Quill. The general screams in raw terror and despair, demanding to know what a useless backline healer like Quill could ever understand about the front lines. He glares down at Quill with pure hatred, gnashing his teeth as he rants about the sheer agony and despair of facing those monstrous beasts. Just when he thought it was over, Quill dragged him back, and now he wonders how many more limbs they must lose. He points a trembling hand toward the soldiers, his voice heavy with blame and exhaustion. None of them want to fight anymore, he growls, stunned. Quill finally turns his gaze toward the surrounding soldiers, his eyes widening in complete shock. Around him, every single fighter is broken and mutilated. Some have shattered arms, others are permanently blinded, while the rest lie sprawled on the ground, completely consumed by fatigue and pain. Panic completely takes over Quill's face as the general's words sink in. He saved as many as he could, so how could everything he did be absolutely meaningless? This brutal realization hits him harder than any physical blade, making his bleeding shoulder feel like nothing. If the general is right, then all his sweat, tears, and risky efforts on the front lines were entirely in vain. Finally pulling his sword from Quill's shoulder, the general makes him grind his teeth in pain. He spits out that he doesn't care if Quill is supposedly the greatest healer in the world. He says he is done putting up with him. Turning to leave, the general mutters that humanity is doomed anyway, so if Quill wants to fight, he should do it himself. Desperate, Quill screams after him, his voice cracking with panic. How can a healer even use offensive magic? He cries, his voice breaking. He warns that without him, they will all die, but the general has checked out completely, walking away without a single care. Right then, the dragon outside lets out a terrible roar, gathering a massive fireball in its throat. With a sudden blast, it vaporizes the fortress, ripping the entire structure apart. Quill's room shatters instantly. Stone walls collapse into choking clouds of dust. Nearby, a massive boulder pins the general to the floor, leaving him gasping for air. He tries to crawl away, but another heavy slab crashes down, crushing him as he shrieks in agony. Then everything detonates. Quill forces his eyes open, and the grim reality of their situation finally clicks. The dragon lands right in front of him, spreading its wings and snarling. Staring at the beast, Quill realizes the horrifying truth: this is the nightmare those soldiers had to fight every day. He chuckles weakly. Despair fills his eyes. It is true he has only ever watched safely from the back. Gripping his bleeding shoulder, his hand shakes uncontrollably. Damn it, all those years mastering healing magic, completely wasted. A rush of bitter memories floods his mind, leaving him in absolute chaos. Despite his legendary talent and being crowned the world's greatest healer, he grits his teeth as raw anger surges through him. He should have been fighting this entire time. In that desperate moment, Quill grabs a nearby rock. Knowing he can't win, he still charges forward, wishing with all his heart he could just go back to that fateful day. Clenching that tiny stone, he rushes the monster with pure determination in his eyes. But there's no miracle waiting for him. The massive dragon closes in, swallowing Quill whole. His last thoughts are filled with useless regrets as his life is completely snuffed out. Those drifting thoughts fade away into a chaotic blur of emotions, but suddenly Quill snaps his eyes open. He bolts upright instantly, staring around in absolute shock at the incredibly familiar scenery that makes him completely freeze. He spots an academy admission guide sitting on the desk nearby. If this guide is actually here, then that means he rubs his eyes in disbelief and immediately rushes outside. A peaceful scene unfolds before him, with people chatting happily. Could it really be that exact day from years ago? He stands there totally frozen, jaw dropped, realizing he actually went back in time. It is the 16th year of the imperial calendar, the very day he was supposed to enroll at Hitch, the Academy for Healing Magic. Quill, the man destined to become the world's greatest healer, looks around in utter confusion, remembering his death by that dragon. Holding the admission letter in his trembling hands, a week before classes even start at Hitch, he murmurs in a tired voice. He really has no idea how any of this is even possible. His final memories from his past life flash in his mind, but if his dying wish actually came true, then he knows exactly what he needs to do next. Now get this, he is changing his entire path. Clutching the admission letter, determination burns on his face. In a firm voice, he declares he will enroll, not at the healer school but at the legendary combat magic school, Quat Academy. Quill stands lost in thought. In this world, everyone knows healers can never use offensive combat magic. It is an absolute rule, but he is determined to shatter that ancient stereotype, even if it means facing massive obstacles that everyone says are impossible to overcome. As past memories flood his mind once more, he realizes he still holds a massive advantage. He remembers everything from his previous life, including the high-level healing magic he had fully mastered back then. By fully utilizing these advanced spells, he can absolutely rewrite the future. Fueled by unwavering resolve, he immediately sets a clear goal for his brand new life. His eyes flash with certainty as he vows to save this world with his own hands. To kick off his master plan, Quill focuses on his first step. He must gain entry into Quat Academy, the absolute best combat magic school in the entire world. Quat Academy is legendary for its top-tier training program, rumored to turn literally anyone into a formidable battle mage. Even the powerful people he encountered in his past life all graduated from there. But there is a catch. Their training methods are a closely guarded secret, only taught to official students. The biggest obstacle for Quill is his registered identity as a healer. Closing his eyes, he racks his brain. No healer has ever been admitted to Quat before. How is he supposed to pull this off? Suddenly, a brilliant idea flashes in his head. Since Quat Academy claims they can turn anyone into a top-tier combat mage, rumors say wealthy nobles occasionally use massive bribes to slide their untalented kids in. But that hope is immediately crushed. He literally just regressed, so where on earth is he going to find that much cash? He looks around his empty room with deep regret, wishing he could have brought his previous life's fortune back with him. The massive rewards he earned serving the kingdom back then would have easily lasted him an entire lifetime. Realizing he is stuck in a dead end, panic starts to set in. Even if he found a job, there is simply no time before admissions close. Suddenly, a sweet, gentle voice interrupts his racing thoughts, asking if he is awake yet. A beautiful young woman steps into the room. Her warm smile leaves him completely stunned. Tears well up in his eyes as he stares at her in disbelief. It finally hits him. He really is back in the past. In this timeline, his beloved sister is still alive. Seeing his tearful face, she asks in confusion if his stomach hurts. Quill quickly waves his hands, frantically explaining that he just got some dust in his eyes. He wishes her a good morning, and she replies with a sweet, reassuring smile. Staring at her, a brand new realization begins to take shape in his mind. In this life, he will absolutely prevent the tragedy that took her away. With his advanced healing magic, he can save everyone he failed to protect before. Suddenly, a brilliant solution hits him, and he lets out an excited grin. He grabs her hands, smiling like a fool, and thanks her for helping him figure out a way. His sudden outburst leaves his sister completely bewildered and asking what on earth he means. Without explaining, Quill rushes out the door, yelling that he will tell her everything when he gets back. His sister just sighs helplessly, shouting for him to make sure he is back in time for dinner. Meanwhile, the Magic Academy Alliance is the supreme organization overseeing all wizarding education in the kingdom. At this point in time, the president of this prestigious alliance also serves as the principal of Quat Academy. Talk about holding some serious power. However, the president has recently stopped showing up to alliance meetings entirely. The scene shifts to a grand mansion where the moonlight streams in, showing Principal Izam sitting anxiously by a bedside. The young girl, Maddie, lies there with a feverish, red face. Izam Gunzan, the powerful alliance president and principal of Quat, gently touches her hot forehead. His eyes are filled with deep worry and tenderness for his precious granddaughter. Izam's expression turns incredibly somber. Looking at her, he softly apologizes because the current healers are simply not skilled enough. He vows to find someone who can cure her, begging her to hang on just a little longer. During this period, the powerful president spends all his days constantly caring for his gravely ill granddaughter. But the healing magic of this era is completely useless against her disease. In the previous timeline, she tragically passed away as Izam wept. But here is the twist: Quill suddenly leaps right onto the windowsill, offering to help. He offers to handle it himself. Staring at the intruder, Izam is highly skeptical at first, but then recognizes him. He asks if he is Quill, the scholarship student from Hitch Academy. Quill lightly hops inside. Surprised the president knows him, Quill listens as Izam explains that his rare healing talent is already famous. Though the older man adds, he never expected a prodigy to break in through a window. Quill scratches his head in embarrassment, silently realizing his past self would never have been this bold. Having died once already, he feels a lot more daring than he used to be. Cutting straight to the point, Quill says there is no time to waste for either of them. Reaching his hand toward Maddie with absolute confidence, he declares he can completely cure her. Izam eyes him with deep suspicion and caution, demanding to know what he is actually plotting. Quill quickly asks him to put that aside for now and just let him treat her, since the disease is progressing much faster than expected. Quill meets Izam's sharp, calculating gaze with absolute determination and genuine worry. Finally, the older man agrees to let him try, letting Quill breathe a massive sigh of relief as he prepares to perform the healing. Both of them sit opposite each other right by Maddie's bedside. Quill feels a bit tense under Izam's intense and heavy scrutiny. That sharp glare is incredibly intimidating, making the pressure feel real. It is as if the legendary principal is ready to end him on the spot if even a single thing goes wrong. That is a combat magic expert for you. Quill takes a deep, calming breath to steady his nerves and carefully holds Maddie's hand. A brilliant healing light erupts, completely filling the entire room. Quill concentrates hard on casting, noting that while his raw mana is much lower now, he still perfectly remembers every advanced healing formula. Watching Maddie's pale complexion slowly improve, he smiles. The actual cure for this Zora disease is not supposed to be invented for another 2 years. But utilizing his future knowledge, he successfully cures her. Maddie slowly opens her eyes. Quill lets out a sigh of relief, smiling warmly as he tells her she is okay now. Staring at his handsome face, she instantly blushes. He gently advises her to rest since her body is still weak. She shyly turns away and nods. Izam rushes over, anxiously asking Maddie if she really feels alright. With a bright smile, she happily reassures him. She tells her grandfather she can't even remember the last time she felt this healthy. Tears well up in Izam's eyes as he gazes at his beloved granddaughter. He leans down to gently pat her head in relief. Later in the living room, Izam sits down to talk with Quill. He sincerely thanks the young man and promises to do absolutely anything in his power to help. He speaks up without any hesitation. "Thank you so much, but this isn't just a simple request." Then he lays down his terms. "As you can see, my healing magic is already at the absolute peak, meaning I've got nothing left to learn in this field." Placing his hand over his chest, he confidently makes his plea, "So please let me enroll at Quat Academy." The elder looks quite conflicted and asks you want to join an offensive magic academy instead of using your healing talents. Do you actually understand what that even means? But Quill doesn't blink, replying with absolute certainty that he definitely does. Neelam stares deep into Quill's burning eyes. That intense gaze makes the old man stand up abruptly, catching the boy off guard. Neelam thinks maybe my authority exists solely for this day. Looking at Quill's unwavering resolve, the elder speaks up, promising to make it happen. They both stand up and shake hands as Anilam officially approves his admission. Quill tightly grips his hand, his determination completely sealed. Cut to a room where a frustrated man is grumbling to himself, that sly old fox. I thought he just suddenly returned, but he's actually pulling off something this crazy. He picks up a document, muttering how a healer could ever keep up with Quat's curriculum. Especially a pampered healer like this. That paper is indeed Quill's admission form. Fast forward to opening day, crowds of students stand in the courtyard while Anilam looks down from the podium with a solemn face. Trust me, this place is on a whole other level, a massive boarding academy strictly focused on offensive magic, packed with training grounds and research labs, and even a gigantic library. With incredibly influential alumni outside and full financial backing from the kingdom, there is absolutely no better environment on Earth to master offensive magic. No healer has ever enrolled here before, so he knows countless hardships are waiting for him. But with a hopeful smile, Quill thinks to himself that if he studies here, he can definitely become a real offensive mage. The brutal deaths of his friends and comrades, his memories from a past life, and his own demise right here flash before his eyes. Now, his life is finally turning a brand new page. Once classes start, his face turns incredibly strained, a far cry from his bright expression earlier. The professor stands nearby, yelling at him to begin, as Quill raises his hand toward the target dummy. Yes, sir, he says. A magic circle manifests right before his palm as sparks of fire begin to overflow. Feeling his mana fully gather, Quill lets out a loud shout, but the flames do not shoot out at all. Instead, his hand is just covered in thick smoke. While the other students burst out laughing, the professor calmly notes that he failed again today, before handing down a harsh punishment. Until you can blast that target with basic attack magic, do not even think about coming back to class, go practice by yourself in the backyard. Hearing this, Quill protests loudly. But teacher, can't you at least show me how to do it right? If things stay like this, I have no idea how to practice. Pushing up his glasses, the man coldly replies that teaching a healer is nothing but a complete waste of time. Even so, Quill refuses to give up, proposing another option: then at least let me study theory in the library. But the professor maintains his completely indifferent attitude. There are no books for healers here, and disobeying my orders will only get you punished. While the two of them back and forth, another student nearby summons a flame with a cocky grin. Suddenly, that jerk hurls the fireball straight at his back, yelling at him to get out of the way, sending Quill crashing face first into the dirt. Shaking, he struggles to push himself up, asking what the hell that was. But his attacker only looks down with pure contempt. You couldn't even dodge a basic attack like that? Unput sneers with a smug look. This is an offensive magic academy, and there's absolutely no room for weaklings who can't even protect themselves. Looking down, he mockingly adds, getting hit is entirely your own fault. Honestly, you can't help but feel for our main character as the professor joins in on the scoffing. Unput chuckles, exactly. Wouldn't it be better if you just got lost and went to the healing academy? Seeing the professor agree, Unput gets even bolder, telling him to go crawl back and get comforted by those gentle healers. Amidst the echoing laughter, Quill just stays quiet, frowning in absolute frustration. Late that night, he sits alone on a bench in the training field, letting out a heavy sigh. Looking up, he mutters to himself that there's absolutely no sign he can use offensive magic. Honestly, Quill isn't too shocked by this setback. He knew it would be incredibly hard, because healing and offensive spells rely on completely different power sources. Magic is the conversion of a user's mental mana through formulas to trigger spells, and the very nature of that mana is decided by their state of mind. Attack magic requires active mana to spark fires or create devastating explosions. Healers only possess passive mana, making it seemingly impossible. Yet, Quat Academy has a secret method for training elite offensive mages completely from scratch. Among those methods, there has to be a way to forge active mana. Since he's pretty confident in his mana control, learning that trick would let him convert his passive pool into an active one. But recalling this afternoon's disaster, he feels completely helpless. He never expected they wouldn't even let him step inside a classroom. Do the students and teachers here really look down on healers that much? Jumping up, he resolves that he absolutely cannot give up now, as a girl's silhouette suddenly flashes in his mind. She once told him that her mana was also incredibly tiny at first, but she refined it right here. Choosing Quat was definitely the right move. Rubbing his chin, Quill starts planning blindly. Training like this is going to get him nowhere. Since I'm banned from the library, maybe I should just sneak in tonight? Suddenly, a voice booms, asking what he is doing there so late. Startled, Quill quickly stammers out an apology. He sheepishly scratches his head and turns around, but his eyes instantly widen in pure shock. As a gentle breeze sweeps by, the clicking of boots echoes and piercing blue eyes peek out from behind flowing white hair. Under the moonlight, her face is fully revealed, leaving him utterly frozen as he mutters the name, Veronica. He knows her because in his past life they fought side by side on the battlefield, where she was known as an absolute top-tier offensive mage. Quill is secretly overjoyed he never expected to cross paths with her again in this lifetime. Talk about nostalgic. Her magic sword could slice through absolutely anything in the blink of an eye. But right after that thought, he panics and yells at the sudden turn of events. Wait, she's actually drawing her sword! Hearing him, Veronica calmly replies that there's a suspicious student wandering around, so being on guard is only natural. She interrogates him, asking what he's doing, if he's trying to start trouble, or just practicing. Quill quickly sizes her up. She's nothing like those bullies, but he absolutely cannot afford to get beat up right now. He quickly waves his hands, protesting that he's only practicing, before Veronica finally sheathes her blade. Good, she says as they start talking. You're Veronica, right? I am, she replies, but quickly adds a warning, asking if he always addresses his own teacher so casually. He reflexively apologizes before the realization hits him. Wait, she's a teacher? In his past life, she wasn't actually much older than him at all. Seeing his incredibly confused look, Veronica is forced to explain that she skipped multiple grades and became an official teacher starting this year. Quill sheepishly scratches his cheek, saying he understands, while secretly thinking that with her monstrous talent, that's actually totally expected. Determination fills his eyes as he realizes this is his golden opportunity. Since he desperately needs someone to teach him offensive magic, she's his best bet, though he has no idea if this plan will actually work. He directly speaks up, asking to register for her class and what he needs to do to join, but Veronica just places a hand over her chest, politely turning down his request. I'm sorry, but I haven't been assigned to teach any actual classes yet, she explains, adding that she skipped so many grades she rarely even attended normal lectures. This year, she's working as an assistant tutor to answer student questions, since the academy figured peers would find her easier to talk to. Yet, she complains she has no idea why nobody ever comes to ask her anything, leaving Quill laughing pretty awkwardly. He knows exactly why they're too scared. Nobody wants to ask a tutor who draws her sword at the slightest movement. But for him, this empty schedule is an even better opportunity. Feeling pumped that he can freely seek guidance from Veronica, Quill gets straight to the point. May I ask you something then? Veronica calmly nods. Sure, why not? After all, teaching is her job. Quill asks her directly with a dead serious look on his face. What does a healer actually need to do to master offensive magic? She stays silent, deeply considering his question. Suddenly, her eyes flash with a sharp light. She admits she noted something quite strange about his mana flow. So you are the Newsy student everyone is gossiping about? Quill is pretty shocked she even knows. You actually know who I am? She smiles. A healer studying offensive magic is extremely rare after all. Quill quickly gets back to business, mentioning he heard there is a special method. A secret way to refine active mana entirely from scratch. If that technique really exists, then even someone like him should be able to wield active mana. Veronica turns and delivers some good news. The method does exist and she can teach him. Quill brightens up immediately, but her sudden warning cuts his excitement short as she explains further. Using offensive magic is still pretty much impossible for you. Your passive mana pool is just too massive. At this rate, even if you successfully refine some active mana, it will immediately dissolve into your passive pool. Even if you somehow manage to refine it, once those two types of mana mix, the offensive magic formulas will completely fail to activate normally. Quill refuses to accept this, asking if there is absolutely no other way for a healer to use offensive magic. Her cold response is simple, not as far as she knows. Honestly, watching his best plan completely crash and burn like this is a massive blow, but you already know our main character, he is definitely not the type to just give up. Forcing a polite smile, Quill thanks her and turns to leave, saying he will figure something out. But right as he takes a step, she stops him, saying she is not finished yet. Sure, a healer cannot cast offensive spells, but there is still a way for one to become a combat mage. Quill is pretty confused, asking her what she actually means by that. Veronica grabs a nearby chair and gives him a quick analogy. She asks him to imagine a regular iron sword, swing it, and you can easily take down any enemy in your path. And here is a simple wooden chair you sit on. Though quite lost, Quill just nods along. Suddenly, Veronica effortlessly lifts the entire heavy chair with just one hand. But if you swing this very chair to bash someone over the head, you can still knock them out cold, right? Quill is completely terrified on the inside. With those skinny arms of hers, putting the chair back down, she continues her lecture. You never thought of using a chair that way, because it was built for sitting, but you have the freedom to use it however you want. These hands are no different, she whispers, gently touching his blushing cheeks. I can gently pat your head like this. Her finger trails down to his lips, then suddenly flicks his forehead with serious force, or I can easily make you hurt. Seeing Quill flinch, she asks if she went a bit too far. Clutching his head, he groans that it is fine. The point is, everything is about application. Absolutely anything can become a deadly weapon if you use it right. A sudden realization hits Quill. Using healing magic to attack. She nods, highly satisfied with how fast he catches on. It is pretty strange he never even considered this option until now. That comes down to mindset and basic differences in innate mana. It is exactly why offensive mages never bother learning healing spells in the first place. But you might be a complete exception to that rule. Just voluntarily applying to this offensive magic academy proves you are different, and honestly, your mana pool does not feel like a pure healer's anyway. He stares at his palm. Not the same? Even he never noticed. Could it be because of his regression? Suddenly, she holds a drawn sword right against his neck. You need to reevaluate yourself, she says seriously, tapping into the deep desire to fight hidden inside him. Do that, and your healing magic will absolute crush any enemy. Time passes, and the very next day on the training grounds, Quill cannot stop thinking about Veronica's words from the night before. Her teaching style is incredibly bizarre, but it completely opened his eyes. Still, why does someone like Veronica have zero prejudice against healers? It is fascinating how she connected healing with offensive spells. But his thoughts are cut short when the arrogant professor calls out, "Hey, healer!" Quill sighs, noting they do not even use his real name anymore. Checking the roster, the teacher announces today is one-on-one sparring, and since they have an odd number of students, Quill is forced to join. He can only listen helplessly. The professor smirks maliciously, telling Quill that his lack of offensive magic is his own problem, so whatever happens next is on him. He then smugly announces the pairings are set. Quill will be fighting Unput. Hearing his opponent snicker, Quill does not even get angry. This is an incredibly obvious setup. Staring sharply at his opponent, Unput Omen is a high-born noble always surrounded by sycophants. But from what Quill observed in class, this guy actually possesses the skills of a real offensive mage, rather than just relying on his prestigious family background. Unput sneers at him, mocking that healing magic cannot cure utter humiliation. He asks if Quill is going to run home crying to his mother after getting beaten to a pulp. Hearing this trash talk makes Quill's mouth twitch, though his past self would have just ignored it entirely. And honestly, you can tell this arrogant punk is seriously getting on his nerves. This is the perfect chance to test out that crazy healing magic theory from last night. Quill raises his hand, but the professor snickers, saying surrendering is not allowed. Surrender? No way, Quill says. He just has a small proposal. Quill plays along, admitting that wasting time on offensive magic is pointless. He then drops a massive bombshell. If he loses this duel, he will drop out of the academy for good. Professor is delighted, calling it a wise choice, but Quill is not finished. If he wins, will he be allowed to join the regular classes? The teacher frowns, telling him to stop dreaming, but Unput loudly agrees to the terms. He mocks that a weakling fighting the strong must rely on delusions just to calm his absolute terror. Unput thinks this pathetic loser desperately needs some false hope anyway. Besides, crushing a hopeless weakling is always fun. The professor relents, thinking discussing stupid what-ifs is a waste of time anyway. He raises his hands, tells them to take their positions, and signals the match to start. Instantly, Unput unleashes his magic power, summoning a glowing magic circle that manifests a dozen floating daggers. He is incredibly proud of this signature technique of his. He screams to watch closely as his projection magic creates a storm of lethal blades, launching them directly at Quill with deadly intent. What can a loser who cannot cast basic offensive spells even do? As the sharp blades rush toward him, Quill calmly presses his fingertips together. A bright magic circle glows between his hands as his eyes flare with a deep green. Quill effortlessly slips past the incoming daggers, leaving Unput staring in absolute shock. He internally notes that healing magic is essentially life manipulation. He controls the target's bodily functions to heal them by triggering their maximum recovery rate. But recovery is not the only thing he can manipulate. If he turns that concept into an attack, Unput mocks him, thinking it was just luck. But Quill silently channels his mana to physically reinforce his body. His hand catches an incoming dagger out of the air, and then he uses magic to redirect its path. The rest of the daggers clatter onto the ground from the impact, leaving just one remaining weapon in Quill's grip. Right on time, the sharp blade glints beautifully under the hot sun. With an absolutely confident smirk, he decides to borrow it for now. This sudden turn of events catches everyone completely off guard. What just happened? Was that attack magic? I thought he could only cast basic healing spells. Listening to their shocked whispers, Quill quietly corrects them in his head. Wait, let's look closer. He's actually weaponizing healing magic to fight back, and no one even notices. Overly frustrated, the big guy, Lubus, summons another batch of daggers. Lubus claims he was just holding back and boasts that he can summon way more. There is no way an offensive mage loses to a mere healer. Yet Quill effortlessly uses his own blade to block every single incoming dagger. The shattered daggers crumble to pieces as Lubus completely loses his temper. It is not just about numbers anymore. Suddenly, his weapon begins to expand, transforming into a massive, heavy sword. Watching this, Quill calmly assesses his opponent. The guy is actually pretty strong, and his innate understanding of specialized magic is high. Lubus then channels even more energy into his giant blade, making it spin wildly in the air. Lubus is incredibly proud of his new technique, loudly asking how his opponent likes it. But Quill casually raises his small blade, blocking the massive spinning sword with zero effort. It's an unbelievable sight that leaves Lubus gritting his teeth in sheer frustration. He pours all his remaining mana into the giant sword, while Quill casually wonders if he should boost his physical reinforcement just a tiny bit more. With a quick swing, Quill sends that massive sword flying straight into the sky. It crashes down, stabbing into the ground as Lubus screams in bitter defeat. It is absolutely impossible. In the blink of an eye, Quill appears right behind Lubus. He smiles and tells him to forgive him, promising to give him a proper healing session afterward. The sun glints off his raised blade, but suddenly a massive obstacle blocks his view as a loud voice booms. "That's enough!" Quill quickly leaps back, while Unput collapses to the ground in sheer terror. Out of nowhere, a colossal boulder has manifested right in the middle of the training field. The professor's voice trembles slightly as he commands them to stop, reminding everyone there is still another match to play. As they stare each other down, Quill cheerfully brings up their previous agreement once again. He asks if he can attend regular classes now. The professor, clearly annoyed, grunts and tells him to do whatever he wants. Having achieved his goal, a bright, satisfied grin spreads across Quill's face. He politely thanks the teacher and takes his leave early from the session. Walking down the long hallway back to his room, Quill begins to ponder. The battle felt incredibly natural, as if he has finally developed his own unique offensive magic style. It is far more effective than he ever imagined. He just took down a highly skilled offensive mage of his own age. Thanks to teacher Veronica, he knows how to weaponize healing spells. His little plan has succeeded perfectly. Outside, the Grand Academy flag flutters proudly in the wind. Meanwhile, Unput struggles to mask his intense rage, quickly reassuring the professor that this was nothing more than a minor training mishap and that he is completely fine with it. He adds that he wouldn't want to bother his powerful father with such a trivial matter. The professor stands speechless, while Unput's eyes flash with a venomous, cruel glint. Unput asks if the professor understands. Adjusting his glasses out of habit, the instructor assures him that he does. A sinister grin creeps onto the teacher's face, determined not to let a mere healer act so arrogant. Sitting in a crowded classroom, Quill feels a rush of nervous excitement. He is finally attending real classes and can learn absolutely everything about combat magic. As the heavy doors slide open, the other students quickly turn their heads to look. The person walking in is a very familiar face. Quill glances up briefly before looking away to avoid any eye contact. Taking his place at the podium, the professor announces the start of their magic tool crafting class. Since it is early in the semester, the material is basic, with homeroom teachers handling multiple subjects. Quill realizes today's lesson is indeed all about crafting magic items. The Healer Academy had something quite similar, and the memory brings a nostalgic smile to his face. Meanwhile, the professor begins drawing on the blackboard to explain the process of crafting bombs before passing out the materials. He instructs them to assemble the components step by step and infuse their mana. In his past life, Quill only made recovery items like potions. This Combat Academy is definitely a whole different beast, focusing entirely on weapons. They probably think he will rely purely on active mana, but the material properties do most of the work anyway. Opening his supply pouch, Quill figures this class will still be highly useful to him in the end. Inside, he finds a fire branch powder and ice golem eye shards. Flipping through his textbook to look up the instructions, he reads that he must carefully mix the hot powder with the frozen shards. Suddenly, the ice shard begins radiating a bizarre, unstable magic energy. Realizing the danger instantly, Quill doesn't hesitate for a second. He springs to his feet, uses physical enhancement, and hurls the shard away. An explosion rips through the classroom, leaving a massive block of ice frozen onto the wall. As the initial panic begins to settle down, the professor yells in absolute fury, demanding to know what on earth Quill is doing. Quill tries his best to stay calm and explain that the item self-activated before he even touched it with his mana. Unsurprisingly, the teacher refuses to listen and immediately docks his points. Hearing sudden snickering behind him, Quill turns around to find Unput and his lackeys laughing mockingly at him. As the golden light glints in his eyes, he realizes that something highly suspicious is definitely going on here. When the next class starts, a strange beast sits locked inside a cage on his desk. It is a mythical creature class featuring a fiery salamander. The two stare at each other, with Quill sitting completely isolated at the front row. The teacher barks that low-performing students belong in the front to focus. Quill's entire body tenses up as he sits there. Being so close, he notices the salamander is trembling violently. Suddenly, it unleashes a blast of fire right at him. But Quill anticipated this and blocks it with a frying pan. The perplexed teacher steps forward, demanding to know why he even has a pan. Quill confidently replies that he simply figured it might be useful at some point. Unfortunately, the teacher steps forward and confiscates it immediately. Watching the caged creature creep closer, Quill leans back and finally confirms his suspicions. So that is how they want to play. Honestly, they let him in just to mess with him, so what's his move now? Let's see how he handles this. Over in the corner of the room, another student sits in a very tense posture. She looks incredibly anxious as she steals nervous glances at him. Later, the relentless harassment continues out in the training yard, with Unput launching fire directly at Quill and claiming his hand simply slipped. Next, during the actual class, the professor demands he solve a complex magic formula. Quill hesitates, admitting he hasn't even reached this topic yet. The teacher immediately uses this to bully him, claiming lagging behind is entirely his own fault and docks his score. More points are docked, even outside of the classroom. Piles of trash are dumped right in front of his door. Upon hearing of this, the dorm supervisor steps in to punish Quill instead. Claiming he has a bad attitude in class, the supervisor bans him from eating dinner. Back in his room at the academy dormitory, Quill sighs in frustration at how incredibly unfair it is as he collapses exhausted onto his bed. With the entire academy showing absolute hostility, these past few days have been a non-stop barrage of frustrating obstacles, and a mountain of challenges still lies ahead. Yet, staring up at his hands, Quill remains completely resolved. He is making steady progress and refuses to let their petty bullying break his spirit. Memories of his very first real duel keep flashing through his mind. For the first time, he fought with his own strength and won a clear victory. That triumph keeps a flame of hope alive deep in his chest. He can definitely become a combat mage. After cheering himself up, Quill sits up to study his brand new textbooks, eager to review today's lessons. But when he arrives the following morning, the classroom is completely empty, looking incredibly desolate. Glancing at the clock, he gets a strange feeling. Class should have started, yet there is still no teacher in sight. Quill looks around the silent room and notices the anxious girl from before is the only other student present. He realizes they probably changed classrooms without bothering to inform them at all. Deciding there is no point in staying, Quill gets up and gently speaks to the quiet girl, startling her so much she jumps in surprise. Quill scratches his cheek and suggests that their class might have relocated. Ejika looks down, quietly agreeing in a soft voice that she thinks so too. Her next words immediately catch his attention. Since there are only teachers and bullies around here, he can easily guess what happened. She radiates such a gloomy, depressing aura that it feels like mushrooms are literally growing off her. I guess we are on the same side, Erika says, her voice trailing off in a gloomy sigh. Since we both got pushed to the sidelines, we might as well stick together and become friends. Will is pretty surprised, quietly sizing up his new classmate. She looks gloomy, but her words are surprisingly sharp. Still, he extends his hand with a bright smile, saying he is really glad to make a new friend. She gasps in delight at how refreshing he is, immediately jumping up to shake his hand. She asks for his help, introducing herself as a young noble named Erika Callan. Will scratches his head and shyly admits that Erika is his very first friend at the academy. She politely waves her hand, saying it makes perfect sense because he rarely shows up to class, and on top of that, he is a healer. They all say healers are just weaklings. Hearing this, Will completely freezes. Erika gives a bitter laugh, saying she actually goes to class and is an offensive mage, yet she still has 0 friends. Will ponders her words, putting her strange personality aside. The prejudice against healers is indeed deeply rooted in this world. Those offensive mages fighting on the front lines and getting all the glory always look down on healers. In his past life, he was recognized as the kingdom's top healer early on, so he never had to experience this kind of harsh discrimination. But at an academy dedicated to offensive magic, that toxic attitude is extremely severe. Studying here means he must fight against this bias. Erika hesitates for a moment, but finally asks why he even decided to come to Quat Academy. Will mutters the question back to her. Why did he come here? The answer has been clear for a long time, so he says it without hesitation because he was born a healer. He realized that being a healer is no excuse to give up. Erika tilts her head, not quite getting it. He chuckles awkwardly, keeping it vague, and asks why she decided to enroll here. Surprised to be asked, she awkwardly explains that she comes from a minor noble family in the countryside. Since they have no son, her parents worry their bloodline will fade away. So they figured if she made a name for herself as an offensive mage, she could succeed them as the family matriarch. Honestly, her reason is pretty easy to understand. Graduating from Quat Academy would definitely help her achieve that, but Erika sadly confesses she has almost 0 talent when it comes to offensive magic. Because of that, she has no friends, and attending class is like pure torture. It is just miserable. But then she happily claps her hands, saying she finally has a friend now, though her words do not sound cheerful at all. With Will here, someone who ranks even lower than her, she is not worried anymore. Hearing her say this so cheerfully, Will can only sigh, wondering how she can speak so bluntly with a happy face. They continue chatting warmly, with her telling him to ask her anything he does not understand. He smiles, thanking her for her kind intentions. Turning away, he smiles and mutters that things probably won't go the way she thinks. Such a cryptic comment leaves the gullible girl completely clueless. What does that mean? She asks, but Will does not satisfy her curiosity. Come on, let's go find our classroom, he says, stepping out as she begs him to wait. After searching for a bit, they finally locate the right room. The moment they enter, the professor scolds them for being late when the class started ages ago. Amidst the mockery of their peers, they both apologize, explaining they did not know the classroom changed. But of course, he won't let them off with excuses. Smirking as an idea strikes him, the professor points at a highly complex magic circle on the board and demands they solve it. Seeing this, Erika feels extremely frustrated. It is completely unfair since they just arrived, and Will has not even attended a single lecture. Meanwhile, Will just stares quietly at the board. The professor adds that a correct answer pardons their lateness, but failing means lost points. Down below, Unput smirks, muttering that Will is bound to fail this class. And check this out to everyone's absolute surprise. Will confidently grabs a piece of chalk and writes complex formulas nonstop, leaving Erica completely stunned. Unput assumes he must be guessing randomly, but after a moment, the chalk stops. The fully solved magic circle begins to glow with a soft, brilliant light. Will smugly asks how it looks. Unable to believe his eyes, the professor leans in close, his eyes widening in sheer shock. After double-checking, the professor is forced to admit it is correct and tells him to sit. Unput reacts the hardest in pure disbelief. Sitting down, Erica looks at Will's smug smile, dying of curiosity. How did you solve that? She leans in close during the break, finally letting out all her bottled-up curiosity. She asks how he pulled it off. Will's explanation is simple, it looks complicated, but it is just a basic textbook example. He simply read ahead on his own. Her eyes widen as she slams the desk in disbelief. You read the textbook yourself, she gasps. Her intense reaction makes him flinch, explaining that it was pretty simple. He only read it for the first time yesterday, but the curriculum here truly lives up to its reputation as the world's top academy for offensive magic. The concepts are structured brilliantly, covering everything from basic to advanced. Mastering this makes surpassing ordinary offensive mages incredibly easy. Still, without natural magic talent, just reading the textbook is extremely difficult. Since he was already highly analytical in his past life, he can grasp offensive magic pretty quickly. Hearing this, Erica feels a wave of complex emotions wash over her. Can a healer really do all this? Honestly, we are looking at the world's greatest healer, yet he is just standing there, happily nodding because he finds offensive magic insanely fun. So he stayed up late reading ahead. Erica turns pale, knowing this incredibly difficult material usually requires a teacher's guidance. I thought you were a struggling student, she cries, clinging to his sleeve in despair. Is she the only failing student left now? She begs him not to leave her behind. Will gently pats her shoulder to comfort her, promising to explain anything she does not understand. In her eyes, he suddenly seems to radiate a sparkling, saintly aura. We are friends, right? He says, making her feel much better. But despite his sweet words, Will secretly thinks that while he did not come here to make friends, having her around will make things much easier. Will hesitantly proposes a trade, asking her for a favor in return. After all, magic class is not just about theory. Calming down, Erica suddenly remembers that basic offensive magic is up next. Memories of the training ground flash in her mind, the exact class she always fails. That is why she got kicked out of class. But she figures he will be fine since he defeated Unput. He tells her honestly that he still cannot use basic offensive magic. Hearing this, she gets worried. Clenching his fist, Will reassures her that he has a plan, which is exactly why he needs her help right now. Out on the training field, students line up. Standing there, he recalls the fundamentals offensive magic is divided into basic and specialized magic. Basic offensive magic is designed for anyone to use just by memorizing and analyzing the formula. On screen, Unput casting magic serves as a perfect example. Meanwhile, magic unique to an individual is called specialized magic. Even Quat Academy splits its curriculum between basic offensive magic and training sessions for each student to develop their own specialized magic. Since there is no set rule for the practical part, even I can join the exam by turning my healing magic into a pretty wild weapon. While Quill is lost in thought, the homeroom professor suddenly steps right in front of him. See, if Quill cannot pull off basic offensive magic, there is zero chance he passes this class. The professor looks pretty confident now, but theory is one thing, and practice is a whole different beast. He warns Quill that he will fail if he cannot cast basic offensive magic. Quill does not argue, simply responding with a calm yes. The professor then leads him over to a scarecrow for the usual test. Cast the basic fireball spell to hit that target, the professor orders with crossed arms, sneering as he reminds him that this is the absolute basic of basics. If you cannot even manage this, I cannot let you pass or graduate, he threatens. The professor narrows his eyes, suddenly remembering their previous duel. He mentions seeing Quill use healing magic during practice and how it supposedly boosts agility, but notes that the kid still cannot even cast a single basic attack spell. Reading his mind, Quill just smirks, remembering how the teacher wants this useless healer kicked out of class. The professor catches that look, wondering if the kid actually just smiled. Wait, look at his hand. Orange flames suddenly light up the teacher's shocked eyes as a fire crackles in Quill's palm. The professor can only stammer in complete disbelief. While the class gossips, the culprit secretly celebrates. They fell for it. Just before class, he had actually asked Ejika to cast a basic fireball, which he then secretly stored inside Salamer's tail. How did Quill hide that tail? Simple. He kept healing the tail constantly so it would not burn up, keeping the flame safely concealed. Ejika had asked if it hurt, but as a healer, constant recovery makes this a total breeze. Back in the present, right before casting, Quill uses healing magic to trigger the tail's fire gland, making it look exactly like he just manifested a fireball out of thin air. With that, Quill casually hurls the flame. The target is instantly incinerated. While the professor stands there with his jaw on the floor, Quill just smiles and asks how that was. The teacher tries to process this. It was real fire, no question. Did this kid actually pull off offensive magic? Crossing his arms to look calm, he tells Quill that he passed and can step back now. Quill bows politely, thanking him. Over in the crowd, Ejika, who helped with this crazy scheme, looks just as shocked as the rest of them. Meanwhile, someone else is absolutely seething. Unput screams at the professor, demanding to know what the hell is going on, while the teacher rubs his chin in total confusion. The teacher admits he wants to know too, wondering how a healer suddenly learned offensive magic. Unput, completely dropping his usual playful act, snaps that he does not care about any of that. Just thinking of Quill's annoying smile makes him boil with rage. He cannot stand sharing a classroom with a mere healer who dares to stand up to him. Unput even threatens to have his powerful father shut down the entire class, leaving the panicked professor behind as he walks away. He demands the teacher do whatever it takes to get Quill out of his sight. With that threat, the talk ends, leaving the professor utterly lost. Scheming outside of class is incredibly risky. This is different from handling normal noble kids. The professor worked way too hard for this job to throw it all away now, but he must take the risk to protect his status. Letting a healer look down on him would make him a laughingstock. He refuses to let a 15-year-old ruin his career. He needs a foolproof plan, realizing he has to handle this personally. After school, Quill meets the professor at the training ground, asking what is going on. The professor ignores his question, sneering that Quill seems a bit too arrogant lately. Quill just laughs, rubbing his neck, saying it is all thanks to his great teacher. You idiot. That was not a compliment. The teacher snaps, getting straight to his real trap. What about your attendance records? Apparently, Quill has skipped a ton of his classes since the term started, and the teacher demands to know how he plans to make up for them. Quill just sweats in pure helplessness. He explains that he borrowed notes and self-studied everything, so he should be fine. But the professor quickly dismisses this with a totally ridiculous excuse. That is not your call, he says, pushing up his glasses. If you miss class, you do makeup work, and as your teacher, I decide that your makeup is a sparring match against me. Quill is stunned. A duel with the teacher? But the professor smirks, offering a surprisingly easy deal. Naturally, I will go easy on you. He offers Quill a ridiculously easy deal, claiming one single hit gets him a passing grade. Do you think our boy is actually going to fall for that trap? As Quill hesitates, the teacher chuckles arrogantly. There is no way a weakling like him can touch him. He cannot wait to beat the kid down and show him real power. That will teach him to submit. Quill finally nods, accepting the challenge. A sinister grin spreads across the teacher's face, and he immediately summons a massive magic circle. Let us start right now, he shouts, raising a massive block of earth. Quill remembers this. The professor is a pretty high-level earth manipulator. The ground violently erupts, forcing Quill to leap backward. It is incredibly fast. Before he can land, another jagged rock shoots up, cutting off his escape path. Looking up, Quill gasps as a massive stone pillar crashes down right where he stood. The professor is not holding back at all, mockingly asking if he can only run away. Catching his breath, Quill analyzes the threat. Unlike normal creation magic, this guy manipulates the actual ground, making his attacks insanely fast and almost impossible to predict. This teacher is on a totally different level than Unput. Still, Quill is pretty confident in his own reflexes. He can still read the attacks and dodge just in time. Just like that, they clash. But the magic circle beneath Quill's feet glows once more. Suddenly, two massive stone slabs slam together, trapping Quill. The professor smiles, thinking he won, but Quill breaks free, slashing his sharp dagger from behind, only to hit a thick stone armor protecting the teacher. Completely stuck. That armor is insanely tough. Quill clicks his tongue and leaps back. Safe behind his shield, the professor sneers. You are way too weak to break my ultimate earth armor. Quill cannot help but laugh at the ridiculously dramatic name. The teacher keeps mocking him, saying healing magic can never be used for real combat. To him, Quill is just a half-baked copycat who has no right being a mage. Quill does not get angry. He simply sighs and explains that his healing magic actually taught him a lot about human anatomy. See, humans naturally limit their strength to prevent their own muscles from tearing apart under full pressure. The teacher just scoffs, asking if a student is trying to lecture him now. He sneers, asking if Quill is trying to talk his way out of a beating. But Quill slowly rolls up his sleeves, revealing his muscles, and tells the teacher to wait. A strange magical power radiates from Quill's palm, but since he is a healer, even a broken hand doesn't matter anyway. The professor seems to realize something, and as Quill speaks, he steps even closer. Of course, he doesn't actually enjoy pain, but his injuries will heal right up anyway. Though pretty panicked, the professor still calls him a fool, wondering how that trick could ever pierce his rock-solid earth barrier. Quill just calmly tells him to go ahead and try. A wild, almost manic smile spreads across the boy's calm face, leaving the professor completely dumbfounded and unable to even attempt to dodge. A heavy fist slams right into the professor's hardened face. The protective rock layer instantly shatters to reveal his bloody face. Smiling calmly, Quill gives him a gentle warning, saying it's really not wise to assume a student's limits. Quill actually learned a completely new trick ever since Professor Veronica suggested a brilliant idea, using healing magic as a weapon to attack. He realized there's nothing more foolish than deciding something is completely impossible, and he's absolutely certain he will grow way stronger than this. Suddenly, sensing danger close by, he jumps aside just as a massive stone pillar erupts and thrusts straight forward. Looks like that last punch didn't knock the old man out. The professor is absolutely losing his mind with rage now. Watching him tremble as he struggles to stand, Quill finds it pretty funny and reminds him, "Hey, didn't you say I pass if I land just one hit?" But the bitter professor snarls back, "Shut up, there are no witnesses here anyway." A glowing magic circle appears on the ground again. He refuses to admit he was touched by a mere healer. As sharp stone spikes erupt from the earth, he yells that he'll never accept such disgrace. Seeing this, Quill just sighs in disappointment. Releasing limits isn't just about punching, you know. With a sudden burst of magic flowing from his feet, he instantly closes the distance right in front of his opponent. The professor gasps in pure shock at the insane speed. All he can do is watch Quill raise his fist again. His earth armor is too slow. Unable to dodge, he closes his eyes tight, bracing for impact, but nothing happens. Slowly opening his eyes, he sees the fist stopped right before his face. What? Did he stop? Then he notices something even stranger. He can't move a single muscle either. Oh man, here comes the worst part. The fist slowly presses into his face as he realizes the truth. Time itself has slowed to a crawl. Unable to speak, he begs inside his mind for it to stop. His face distorts in absolute agony. This pain is incredibly slow and agonizing. How many times worse is this than a normal punch? The strike isn't even over and he can't stand it, yet he can't run or even scream out. In this terrifying moment, his desperate silent plea echoes inside his head. Please, just make this absolute torture end. As if answering his silent prayer, time suddenly snaps back to normal, sending the professor crashing hard onto the dirt. Meanwhile, the culprit just flashes a very gentle smile, saying, "Welcome back, Professor." To me, it was only a split second. Hearing that, the professor sits up, screaming in utter terror, asking what the hell Quill just did to him. Quill simply waves his hands, replying that, unlike the professor, he'll gladly explain everything in detail. "Here's what happened the instant my fist made contact. I cast a sensory enhancement spell on you. Normally, it's just a basic healing magic used to treat patients with impaired hearing or vision. Lately, I use it to boost my own reaction time, but I cranked it up way past the limit on you. The result? Your senses became so incredibly sharp that one single second felt like 1,000. Yes, 1 second turned into 1,000. Getting punched in that state must be unbelievably agonizing, but you'd know that better than anyone, right?" Though Quill keeps smiling, a downright terrifying aura radiates from his body. "Oh, and I have one quick question. Did I pass the test?" The professor grunts in annoyance and agrees. But Quill isn't done yet, mentioning there's one more thing as his hand grips the man's shoulder tightly. "It might be hard to erase the discrimination that runs deep in your blood, but if you ever dare to get in my way again," Quill warns, his body releasing a heavy wave of killer intent, "I'll carve the meaning of pain so deep your body will never forget it." The sheer terror makes the professor tremble uncontrollably. All Quill wants is to live a peaceful school life. Naturally, he doesn't want other troublesome students getting in his way either. Suddenly acting as if absolutely nothing happened, Quill politely asks if the professor will grant his small request. Time passes by and the golden sunset glow soon paints the entire academy grounds. Walking down the empty hallway, the professor can't help but wonder what the hell is wrong with that kid. He always assumed all healers totally lacked combat capability, being just a bunch of weaklings with absolutely zero will to fight back. Everyone says healers must submit to attack mages, yet Quill is a complete anomaly. He doesn't just possess formidable combat skills, his sheer willpower is strong enough to radiate actual, suffocating bloodlust. Talk about a small world. Unput appears right on cue, looking pretty amused as he walks up. "Professor, did that useless guy finish his little exam yet?" He giggles, assuming the kid is now one step closer to getting expelled. But out of nowhere, the professor snaps and orders him to shut up, leaning in close to deliver a fierce warning. "Stay away from him. I'm saying this for your own good. If you keep treating him like a regular healer, you're dead wrong." Unput, refusing to believe it, scowls and barks back that this isn't what he wants to hear. "Did you forget? What if I tell my father about this?" But that classic threat doesn't scare the professor anymore. He tells him to go ahead, and while Unput stands there, stunned, the professor casually drops a suggestion. "If you can actually pull that off, why target me instead of just getting that monster expelled yourself?" Before walking away, the professor leaves him with some chilling food for thought. If your family actually decides to move against him, there is a pretty high chance he'll eventually come back to brutally bite us all. Left completely alone in the empty hallway, Unput slams his fist into the wall, spitting out furious curses. Damn it. The next day after class, shutting his book, Quill stretches comfortably. It's so peaceful now. He can easily guess why things turned out this way. The professor must have given Unput a very serious warning. Even though the guy still glares at him with pure hatred, he doesn't dare do anything. Ejik walks over to ask about some homework while Quill is thinking, glad he can finally focus on studying. But this quiet peace is far from enough. The bloody memories flash in his mind. To change that dark, apocalyptic future of humanity, he must get much stronger. Outwardly, though, he keeps calmly explaining the lesson to her. Using healing magic to buff his body is a solid start, but right now he's basically just throwing raw physical punches with all his might. Once the tutoring is over, Ejik happily leaves, leaving Quill alone. Overcharging senses is only good for scaring people. Compared to the versatility of actual offensive magic, he's still lagging way behind. He needs to develop entirely new combat style. He carefully asks the person sitting in front of him if his reasoning makes sense. Out of nowhere, Professor Veronica appears to meet him again. Closing her eyes, she speaks in her signature cold tone, saying she has something to address first. Feeling pretty gloomy, Quill reluctantly mutters a reply, but crossing her arms, she surprisingly flashes an appreciative smile praising his great work. Quill expected a harsh scolding, so her warm words leave him completely stunned. Apparently, he's become the main topic of gossip among the staff. A simple healer keeping up with high-level offensive classes is quite an impressive achievement, she notes. The scene then shifts back to the other instructors. Most of those teachers look pretty annoyed by his sudden progress, but Quill just smiles helplessly. Figures. He then curiously asks if she's intentionally hiding the fact that she gave him that crucial combat advice. Veronica immediately defends herself. It's not really a secret. I just don't talk to the others. There was simply no occasion to mention it. Hearing this, Quill silently remembers seeing her sitting all alone in the corner. Is she actually isolated even among the staff? Awkwardly scratching his head, Quill tries to change the subject, saying he is actually glad it turned out that way, since everything is thanks to her advice. He admits he'd feel pretty guilty if her reputation suffered because of him. Turning around to leave, she tells him not to worry since she couldn't care less. In fact, she's the one who should be grateful. Quill asks with a deeply puzzled look why she would ever be grateful to him. Turning back, she explains that with a typical healer mindset, they would never dream of putting those theoretical concepts into actual, real-life practice. Veronica slowly draws the sword strapped to her back, raising it with a deadly serious look on her face. She admits she is pretty curious to see how a combat healer actually fights. Feeling quite flustered, Quill panics and asks the professor what she is planning to do, but she simply raises her blade into an offensive stance, saying she wants to test his current skills since he wants to get stronger. Hearing this, he immediately waves his hands to decline. Wait, fighting you is, but Veronica cuts him off, declaring that the battlefield has absolutely no room for a timeout. She leaps forward with explosive force, her eyes locked on him. Terrified and completely caught off guard, Quill panics and barely manages to raise his short dagger to block her incoming strike. Gritting his teeth, Quill struggles to hold his ground with his small blade. Veronica slashes down with incredible force, but he barely manages to dodge her sharp edge. Parrying her blows, Quill grits his teeth and realizes that even with reflex enhancement magic active, he is barely keeping up with her. He watches in shock as she keeps raining down relentless strikes. At this rate, Professor Veronica is not just incredibly fast. Every single movement she makes is highly refined to unleash rapid consecutive attacks. Panting heavily, Quill backs away, realizing that relying purely on physical enhancement will cause him to hit his limit very soon. He decides to launch an attack of his own, banking everything on a level of speed he has kept hidden until now. Stomping his back foot, the massive force cracks the ground beneath him. He needs to catch her completely off guard. Unleashing his hidden speed, Quill lunges forward the moment she leaves an opening. In a split second, his sharp blade is inches from Veronica's face. Watch this, her sword suddenly erupts with insane power as she swings down with a heavy blow, catching Quill completely off guard. His eyes shrink with a mix of fear, awe, and pure shock. The tip of his small blade gets sliced clean off, clattering onto the ground. Dazed, Quill can only let out an awkward laugh. Veronica quickly sheathes her sword at her waist. Stroking her chin with a proud look, she admits she never expected a student to force her to use a magic sword. Quill just stares at her calm face, feeling completely helpless. Placing her hands on her hips, Veronica praises him with real admiration. She originally thought his skills were merely decent for a healer who can fight, but in reality his combat power is easily top tier among any offensive mages of his age. Quill stammers in reply, thanking her, but this is still not enough. Veronica crosses her arms, eyes filled with anticipation. She smiles, admitting she loves ambitious students. Just physical enhancement is not enough to satisfy him, is it? Quill looks closely at his broken sword, agreeing that no matter how much he pushes past his physical limits, his options in battle are still pretty restricted. Veronica crosses her arms, pointing out that swords are not just for slashing since you can also stab or throw them. There must be another way to apply his healing magic besides basic physical enhancement. Scratching his head in embarrassment, he admits he has thought of every possible way. None of them actually work. Pointing to her temple, she suggests he might just lack real combat experience. Every concept needs real-world practice to take shape. While knowledge is crucial, those raw split-second ideas born in real combat are what he actually needs. She asks if he noticed anything from their spar. Her words strike a chord and he realizes she is right. Speaking humbly, he asks if he should continue sparring with her. Veronica nods, saying that is a decent idea, but there is an upcoming monster extermination field training session. Hearing this, Quill is completely stunned, repeating the words in disbelief. He instantly recalls that this exact event happened in his past life as well. It is a massive joint monster hunt involving 3 major schools, Quat Academy, Hague Academy, and the Simon Swordsmanship Academy. Students from each academy form joint teams to clear out monsters in the wild. In his past life at Hague, he skipped it entirely, but remembering those terrifying beasts, he vows to fight this time to change that dark, ruined future. He clenches his fist, filled with pure determination. This time he will succeed. Veronica just stares at him silently, watching his sudden shift in attitude. Her eyes turn pretty serious as she explains that to join, he must first prove himself in the intense academy selection exam. Apparently, there is an absolute genius among the first-year students this year. She tells him his goal must be taking the absolute top spot among his peers. Intrigued, Quill asks how this selection exam for the training actually works. Without hesitating, Veronica explains that the applicants will fight each other directly, going on to describe the brutal tournament format to him. Around 100 students apply every single year, and only the absolute strongest few make the cut. Hearing this, Quill realizes this academy truly only cares about combat strength, thoughtfully rubbing his chin as he ponders his chances. He remembers that back at Hague Academy, applicant numbers were so low that basically anyone could join. This high-stakes pressure is definitely Quart's signature style. Man, the nostalgia is really hitting him. He wonders what his master is up to right now. Veronica snaps him out of it, warning him that the freshman genius has supposedly already surpassed the teachers, so taking first won't be easy. This gets Quill pretty excited, thinking how much better this is than dealing with his old homeroom teacher. He asks if she has met this prodigy, causing Veronica to sigh with deep regret. She explains another instructor is already mentoring him, so he never stops by to ask her for advice. Quill laughs awkwardly, thinking that is probably not the only reason he avoids her. Most other students are honestly too terrified to approach her anyway. Placing a hand on her chest with a confident smile, she reassures him that she will personally help him train. Overjoyed, Quill thanks his professor. Time flies and the day of the selection exam finally arrives. Walking down the hallway toward the arena, Quill resolves to give it everything he has got, his eyes filled with absolute determination. He is fully prepared, and now it is time to fight. Suddenly, a voice from behind calls his name, catching him completely off guard. Confused, he slowly turns around. It is the headmaster himself, Izam Gonzan, the leader of the Academy Union. Smiling warmly, he greets Quill and lets him know that his granddaughter has been doing great since their last meeting. Quill smiles back, glad to hear the good news. The headmaster looks at him warmly, apologizing for taking so long to personally thank him for saving his beloved granddaughter. The headmaster admits that adjusting to life at Quat Academy must have been pretty exhausting. Placing a hand on his chest, Quill confidently replies that while things were rough at first, he is doing absolutely fine now. He confidently adds that he is aiming to win this entire selection exam. Azam strokes his beard, laughing heartily at his bold ambition, but suddenly a booming voice interrupts them from nearby. Get a load of this guy, a loud, arrogant voice mocks them as this rude training supervisor approaches, laughing at the sheer absurdity of a measly healer actually trying to take first place. This arrogant man is the official training supervisor. Quill turns to look at him, instantly recognizing the face from his memories of his past life. He remembers that Boz, the Purple Lightning, was a famous offensive magus known for his incredible war achievements. While Quill is lost in thought, Boz suddenly steps forward and grabs his collar. To be completely honest, Quill does not have a single good memory of this guy. Radiating an overwhelming pressure, Boz sneers that combat belongs to the naturally gifted, and effort is just a useless add-on. The man spits the words directly into Quill's face, claiming a weak healer has absolutely zero chance of winning. Stepping in to diffuse the tension, Izam calmly suggests they let the upcoming exam results speak for themselves. Shrugging, Boz releases him and claims this is just his way of teaching. Turning around with supreme confidence, he reminds Quill that his opponent will be his own prize student, Sias. A young man slowly approaches from a distance. That student is Sias Lunote. Quill narrows his eyes, staring intently at the formidable rival standing before him. Walking right up to Quill is a very familiar face, the legendary genius Sidiut. This is the top rival he absolutely has to crush to claim first place. Both of them stare each other down with pure, unyielding determination. Stroking his beard, Master Ao Niem can't help but chuckle at their fiery passion. He tells them to stop daydreaming because it is finally go time. The applicants are ordered to quickly line up and move into the arena. The stadium is absolutely buzzing with pure energy as the crowd goes wild. Everyone aligns neatly to wait for the official signal. When asked why she is even here, Ajika cries that if she skips this, her allowance gets cut. The guys standing right behind Quill glare at him with absolute daggers in their eyes. He can only offer a pretty awkward smile, wishing he were literally anywhere else. Standing proudly before the massive crowd of students, Master Ao Niem starts his speech. He is thrilled to see such a huge turnout this year. He urges them to burn their battle spirit, holding up a finger to explain. The qualifiers are about to start, and whoever survives the time limit advances to the main stage. Quill is pretty tense, wondering if a 100-man survival battle in this tight space is just way too crowded. Sensing their growing anxiety, Master Ao Niem slams his staff heavily onto the ground. He assures them they do not need to worry about the tight space. Suddenly, a massive wave of magic erupts, opening a vast void right under their feet. Wait, look down there. Everyone literally freezes. Is that a whole starry sky stretching out right under their feet? Raising his staff to catch the brilliant sunlight, a massive magic circle forms in the sky. He declares the test has begun. Instantly, Quill is teleported straight into a dense forest, cautiously looking around to assess his new surroundings. Is this the forest behind the academy? Suddenly, Master Aonium's voice echoes in the air, asking if they can hear him. He explains they have been randomly scattered, meaning they can choose to run away or team up. Ijuka screams in a complete panic, while Sidiut calmly listens to the instructions with a slightly surprised look. The examiner warns that initial placement depends entirely on luck. Looking up at the sky, Quill can only wonder in awe. Did he seriously just teleport that many students in the blink of an eye? That is absolutely insane. As startled birds take flight, Master Aonium loudly announces the official start of the field training selection exam. Wasting no time, Quill leaps high into the air. He needs to secure a high branch so he can scan the area first. Quill activates his stealth technique, completely hiding his presence, stopping his life signals, and erasing his existence. Suddenly, a strange noise from behind catches his attention. He spots a duo teaming up to attack a lone girl. Nearby, a guy commands his golem to charge forward. Seeing the beast rush in, Ijuka raises her giant weapon, yelling that she will smash it to pieces with her magic hammer. Another girl unleashes a freezing blizzard of ice magic. Watching from the shadows, Quill smiles. This is a pretty perfect chance to analyze different types of offensive spells. Just trying to pass the exam would be a total waste. A subtle smile creeps onto his face as he decides he wants to try that same trick. Meanwhile, the guy and his summoned beast successfully take down the two girls. Both guys cheer wildly, throwing their hands in the air. The summoner boasts about easily beating both girls and asks if his golem is incredibly strong. Suddenly, Quill slips right behind him, whispering that he saw it very clearly. Quill reaches out, grabs the guy's head, and casts his consciousness-severing magic. In a split second, the student's eyes roll back and lose all life. He collapses straight backward onto the dirt, completely knocked out cold. Placing his hand on the head, Quill controls the life force to keep him unconscious. He notes this spell is hard to use unless there is a massive power gap because you must grab the target's head, but it is great for non-lethal takedowns. Quill lets out a nervous chuckle. He actually invented this trick during his brutal training sessions with Professor Veronica. He is just incredibly glad it worked. Suddenly, he senses danger behind him. 3 throwing knives zoom straight toward Quill, but he swiftly dodges them all. He looks at a sword embedded in the ground, deeply alert. Recognizing the magic, Quill sighs in complete relief. He watches Unput and 2 others slowly approach. He remarks that Unput seriously never learns, but the bully just smirks and starts talking trash. Unput scoffs, claiming he has no idea what Quill is talking about, and that he is simply doing his best to pass. Suddenly, all 3 of them channel their magic, preparing to unleash everything they have. Quill realizes it is a 3-on-1 fight. Unput summons glowing orange blades with his sword creation magic, while the guy beside him activates a venom enhancement spell. They combine their powers, throwing multiple phantom swords toward Quill. Unput laughs maniacally, boasting that even a tiny scratch from these poison-laced blades will instantly knock him out. With this sheer volume of blades, no matter how fast Quill is, dodging them all is impossible. The swords rain down with lethal speed. Staring at the incoming poison blades, Quill thinks about using recovery magic. But dodging this many attacks cleanly using just physical reinforcement is going to be pretty tough. He begins gathering mana in his hands. Check this out. Suddenly, a blurry shadow rolls right in front of him, bouncing those deadly toxic swords away like they are nothing. Sweating bullets, Unput screams in absolute disbelief, demanding to know what that thing is. A stray goblin is shielding Quill, who immediately begins injecting his own mana into it. Normally, healing magic only works on living things, but this golem operates using its master's blood as a medium, making it a magical creature. Quill raises his hand, taking complete control of the beast. It cannot perform highly complex actions like a real animal, but pumping vital energy into it is enough to command it. The goblin charges straight at the enemy trio. It punches the first guy right in the chest, making him cough up blood. Then it spins around and literally sits flat on the second guy. Unput watches in complete panic. He begs his teammates not to get beaten so easily, but a sudden blur appears right before his face. Quill grabs Unput by the face and whispers with a friendly smile, "Sweet dreams." The scene shifts back to the goblin overwhelming the other 2 fighters. Watching from a tree branch, Quill notes that while physical reinforcement is melee only, golems can easily cover that weak spot. Plus, this lets him calmly analyze everyone else's offensive magic without getting dirty. Suddenly, his eyes widen in complete shock as a massive tornado wraps around Quill. He panics, highly confused about what is happening. Just then, a devastating magic beam blasts toward him. Using all his strength, he leaps off the tree right before the attack obliterates half the forest. Both of the students from earlier and his summoned goblin are completely knocked out. Quill stands there, totally stunned by the absolute destruction. Walking out from the dust cloud is a very familiar figure. It is Sidiut, still channeling his overwhelming magic. Quill thinks that this genius is definitely as monstrously strong as everyone says. Defeating him is not going to be easy. Quill slides his hands into his pockets, wondering if he should fight. Suddenly, Master Aonium's voice booms out, ordering them to stop immediately. Everyone freezes as the announcement echoes. The examiner praises their hard work and declares the qualifying round officially over. The final 4 students still standing have successfully passed, and glowing magic circles appear under their feet. The finals will take place tomorrow at the Grand Colosseum. Until then, get some rest as the teleportation magic is activated. Please stand completely still. While warping out, Quill glances over to see Dyut staring back at him with pure cold bloodlust. Sweating nervously, Quill realizes his rival is incredibly hyped for tomorrow too. With the final battle set for tomorrow, the forest returns to absolute silence. Cut to Quill's room where he is sitting calmly at his desk, taking detailed notes on the day's events. He wonders how to spend the rest of his day when suddenly, angry shouting erupts outside his door. Unput's Lakalkis are desperately trying to hold him back, saying that Quill is way too strong. Besides, it looks like he even healed us while we were out. Unput spins around, glaring in pure fury. Shut up! What do you low-tier nobles even know about anything? According to the Omen family teachings, being looked down on by a measly healer is completely unacceptable. He turns away, his mind racing. If word of this embarrassment ever gets out, my father will absolutely lose his mind. The other two exchange tense glances, breaking into a sweat without saying a word. Finally, they both sigh in defeat and turn to leave. Fine, handle him yourself then. Unput, we are done. Nobody wants to take another beating for you. He panics and yells for them to wait, but they both ignore him completely and walk away. Unput is left fuming, his face twisted in absolute rage. Whatever, he will just have to eliminate Quill himself. Meanwhile, Quill is completely relaxed, reading and eating snacks without a care. Suddenly, a loud knock at the door interrupts him. Quill shuts his book and slowly stands up. Who could it be at this late hour? He walks over and opens the door, already sensing that something bad is about to happen. Unput stands there with a fake, overly cheerful smile, putting his hand out. Good evening, Quill. Is it not a beautiful night? Quill immediately drops his guard to high alert. What kind of sick game are you playing now? The bully just chuckles with a friendly smile. A scheme? No, I just want a friendly little chat with you. Unput steps forward, dropping his fake act. Let us be blunt, I hate you, and I absolutely despise you worthless hellers. I have set up all kinds of traps to kick you out of this academy. Quill thinks back to their past encounters. Yeah, and I have already broken quite a few of those schemes. Good night. But Unput just flashes a creepy, mysterious smile. But I should have just been direct instead of playing all these childish games. Unput's expression suddenly turns dark and filled with pure malice. Leave this academy right now. But Quill simply shakes his head, refusing to back down. I am almost impressed by your persistence, Quill sighs. Why do you have to be so obsessed with opposing me? Unput snaps back with pure arrogance. Why? Since when do I need a reason to despise a pathetic heller? Unput points to his chest with extreme pride. Even in the elite Omen family, anyone born as a lowly heller is instantly banished to some remote branch. My own older brother was one of them, a completely weak and useless nobody. He thinks back to his brother, who would just smile submissively even when mocked. A proud elite combat mage and a pathetic healer are on completely different levels. We are simply from two entirely different worlds. Quill looks down, his tone dropping cold. So that is the kind of twisted education they pump into you nobles? Unput throws his arms wide, acting like he is in charge. Since you finally understand, get the hell out of here. This is no place for a weakling healer. Quill's gaze turns ice cold. Did you seriously think I would just pack up and quit? Unput smirks, fully confident in his leverage. Oh, I will make you beg to say those exact words. Unput flashes a wicked, greedy grin. You have family members you care about, do you not? Quill's eyes narrow into a lethal glare. What did you just say? Unput crosses his arms, looking completely pleased with himself. I had my servants do a little digging on you outside. Quill, the orphan who grew up with an older sister in some middle-of-nowhere village. You two must be exceptionally close, right? Quill's expression instantly goes dead silent. If I send my men after her, what do you think will happen to your precious sister? I will leave that to your imagination. He leans right into Quill's ear, whispering, So, made your choice yet? Quill calmly answers, Yes, I have. Before the bully can even celebrate, Quill suddenly grabs him by the throat. If you get it, then get lost, pack up. Quill violently slams him onto the floor, pinned, and snaps his arm backward. Unput starts shaking, whimpering in pain, begging him to stop. It is going to break, but Quill is completely expressionless, applying even more brutal pressure. I told you, did I not? My decision is already made. Stop! With a blood-curdling scream, Unput collapses, clutching his snapped arm. But check this out, he is still arrogant enough to threaten Quill. He really thinks his noble father will save him from this mess. Quill calmly reaches out, grabbing the shattered limb, and casts his healing magic on it. There, see? Good as new, all healed up. Unput stares in absolute horror, trembling. What are you doing? What are you planning? His eyes roll back as a fresh wave of agony hits him. Quill snaps the bone again, only to instantly mend it with his magic. I can't just keep healing it, you know? He casually lifts the arm and breaks it a third time. Please, no more. Unput begs, weeping in agony. Quill just smiles back, a cold, empty grin. Come on now, did you honestly think my resolve was that half-hearted? It is one thing to target me, but the moment you threaten my sister, you cross the line. Screams echo through the night. I have to break you completely. From the very bottom of your soul, I am going to crush your entire will to oppose me. Unput lies crumpled on the floor, completely broken. What kind of monster is this guy? He looks up at Quill, who is still smiling down at him. This is bad. He is a demon masquerading as a healer. I can never cross him again. If I do, he will make my life a living hell. After a tense, terrifying silence, Quill finally speaks up. Well, good night, Unput. Quill waves goodbye as the noble stumbles away like a mindless corpse, reminding him to keep his promise. Quill stretches, feeling absolutely refreshed. To be honest, that felt pretty good. Time to sleep and get ready for tomorrow. Cut to the next day. Quill stands tall on the grand stage, realizing the main tournament is finally about to begin. Up in the stands, Izam leans forward, closely observing the arena below. Boss and Sai sit nearby, watching the tension rise. Quill knows the top 4 from the prelims will face off brutal single-elimination battles. But then, he turns to his opponent, surprised she actually made it this far. Ejika stands before him, looking incredibly timid. She nervously explains that she just spammed firewalls and hid behind them the whole time. It was pure luck, she confesses, since she did not actually defeat a single person. Quill is left speechless. An offensive combat mage who does nothing but defend is definitely a rare breed. He stares at Ejika, a bit worried. But can you really survive the main matches if you keep playing like that? She looks up at him with puppy dog eyes, suggesting that since they are friends, maybe he could go a little easy on her. Quill shuts her down instantly. No way. She pouts, raising her hands to initiate her stance. Well, I already got past the passing score, so now I am going to give it everything I have. The referee raises his hand, signaling the start. Ejika takes a deep breath, sweat dripping, and readies her spell. She fires a blazing fireball straight at Quill. He casually raises his hand, conjuring a shield to absorb the impact. His expression does not even flicker, noting that standard fire magic at this tier is nothing his healing cannot handle. Quill smiles, thinking he has this match in the bag. But prepare yourselves, because here is where everything gets turned completely upside down. Quill freezes in shock. Something is wrong here, this is. Ejika fires off another massive blast, yelling that she is not finished yet. Quill quickly leaps aside to dodge, but he looks down in sheer disbelief as the flames cling to the ground around him. The stray flames refuse to go out, burning endlessly. This is Ejika's special magic, a flame with an unnaturally high persistence. Even though her overall attack power is quite average, letting yourself get hit repeatedly assuming you can just heal is a fatal mistake. He remembers the time they worked together, when he borrowed her fire and it burned forever. It turns out that persistent burn was not just because of the salamander tail, but her own unique magic's influence. Creating firewalls with this kind of flame would make them virtually impenetrable. Quill cannot help but sigh at the irony, thinking this endless, stubborn magic is a perfect reflection of Ejika's own persistent personality. Up in the stands, the crowd begins cheering her on. That girl is actually pretty good. Go take down that heller. Hearing the support, Ejika's confidence starts to surge. Oh my gosh, could I actually win against Quill? That is right, I earned my spot in the main bracket too. Gaining courage, Ejika calls out. If you want to surrender, now is your last chance. But Quill merely looks up, totally calm. Do not worry, I am about to make my move. She instinctively nods in agreement before realizing that was a trap. She unleashes a fireball twice as strong as the last one. This time she is sure she will land a hit, but Quill just smirks, a cocky smile forming on his face. Since these persistent flames refuse to extinguish, Quill thrusts his palm right into the fire. If he cannot put it out, he will just utilize her own endless burning magic to launch a devastating counterattack. Seeing his hand engulfed, Ejika panics in sheer shock. Is he using my own fire to coat his fist? Before she can even process the danger, Quill vanishes and reappears right in front of her. Her face turns completely pale. Flustered, Ejika cowers in fear and quickly shrieks that she surrenders, forcing him to halt mid-strike. Petrified, she collapses right onto the arena floor. The announcer's voice blares through the speakers, declaring Quill the official winner. Even so, Q didn't feel angry at all. Even if they won, those from Hello Class were still looked down upon. But then the crowd turned their anger on Ejika, screaming at her not to just give up like that. How could she call herself a battle mage? The harsh words made her clutch her head, trembling in absolute fear. Just moments ago they were cheering for her. She could only whisper, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. He took her hand to comfort her, telling her not to worry. I think you fought incredibly well, Ejika, and you even healed Ike, so you definitely still have a chance to pass. Staring at their joined hands, she softly called out Q's name. The romantic moment is instantly ruined by an unwelcome arrival, making it clear that a happy ending won't be that easy. Frightened, Ejika tightly grabs Quill's shirt as the menacing Professor Boss approaches. He scoffs, raising a finger and telling them to think about it. Then he spits out words that are anything but kind. The Hello Class is just useless garbage, and surrendering to trash makes you even worse. Releasing a terrifying aura, Professor Boss coldly delivers his final judgment. You clearly failed, so get lost and save me the trouble. Shaking, she barely manages to whisper that she's leaving right away. With Ejika gone, Quill turns to confront the harsh professor. Isn't speaking to a student like that a bit too much? But Boss just claims his duty as a supervisor is to prepare them for the harsh field. If the contestant's level is too low, I have to be brutally honest. That's called tough love. With that, Boss turns to walk away, but his parting words carry a much darker meaning. It seems only one person will pass this year. Suddenly, a quiet voice mutters behind Q, complaining about him blocking the way. Turning around, Q sees a very familiar face. When did Cedius get here, and why can't he speak up a bit? As he brushes past, Q carefully asks if he agrees with Professor Boss. Cedius simply replies with a cold truth in the end: strength is everything. Since Professor Boss is strong, he has a point, and Q can't really argue with that. But then Cedius speaks up in a quiet voice: I understand, though I don't think you're weak either. With that, Cedius turns back, placing his trust in him, saying he hopes Q will go all out. Q frowns, looking seriously at the boy before him. That name really brings back a lot of memories. Now that he thinks about it, in his past life, Q heard of an incredibly powerful combat mage who fought alongside him on the northern front. The massive winds he conjured swept everything away, easily taking down countless enemies. This power was truly meant to sweep through everything. Finally, the final match between Q and Cedius is here. Before starting, Q strikes up a conversation, noting that with Boss's attitude, he won't get any respect unless he wins. That familiar, confident smile returns to Q's face as he declares he will definitely win. Across from him, Cedius just calmly replies, is that so? Once the exchange ends, the referee yells out, let the final selection match begin. Instantly, a massive gust of wind erupts from beneath their feet, a giant gale unleashed from hands far smaller than the storm itself. Q lightly steps aside, planting his feet firmly as sparks of electricity crackle outward. Using that sudden explosive force, he lunges forward straight toward his opponent. As Cedius gets closer, a sudden violent gale forces Q back, its sheer pressure making him shield his eyes. After a quick exchange of blows, he realizes he can't just rush in blindly like he usually does. I get it, I can't get close to him at all. So who's going to take this? Q or Cedius? We'll find out soon enough. As dust settles on the field, Cedius speaks up, looking exhausted. So fast, how annoying, Cedius mutters as magic channels into his palm. How about this then? A powerful blast of wind erupts, but its shape is entirely different from the previous tornado. Q senses the change too. It's not a localized vortex, but a massive storm sweeping across the entire arena. He quickly casts magic on himself to avoid being blown away. Crouching down and pressing his palm to the floor, he decides he has to use that technique. An incredible phenomenon occurs as a tiny sprout rapidly shoots up from the ground, instantly blooming into a massive towering tree. Up in the stands, Ake watches in shock, wondering if that's actually healing magic. Her admiration for Quill grows even deeper. He's gotten so much stronger. And as for Quill, he's incredibly confident in this move, wondering what Professor Veronica thinks. As a single leaf drifts down, Veronica is left completely speechless. Q quickly steps up to explain how he pulled it off, explaining that he injected pure life energy into the plant to trigger rapid growth. He mentions reading about plant-controlling attack magic in the library and realized he could do it too. With this move, his combat strategy can adapt to any type of vegetation. Suddenly, Q's vision blurs, and, before he can fall, Veronica catches his swaying body. She calmly helps him up and asks if he's alright. Scratching his head, he says he's fine but asks if this means he's almost out of mana. He scratches his cheek, complaining that the book never mentioned how exhausting this technique actually is. Veronica's tone turns serious as she mutters that it makes perfect sense. Confused, Q immediately asks what she means by that. She patiently explains the harsh reality that destroying is always much easier than healing, which means recovery magic consumes a massive amount of mana compared to simple attacks. Using recovery magic for offensive purposes makes your mana efficiency incredibly low. It's another crucial lesson he must absorb. He'll need to be very careful about when he uses it. Back in the present, Q feels absolutely confident in his strategy. This is the exact moment he's been waiting for. Even without a talent for attack magic, he'll find a way to overcome every disadvantage. You won't believe how easily he counters this. Facing the massive tree, Cedius calmly raises his hand, splitting the trunk clean in half with a razor-sharp wind. Q is completely caught off guard. How is he using wind blades? Inside Q's head, he starts analyzing all the dangerous moves his opponent can use. A violent vortex that brutally swallows enemies, a massive tempest sweeping the area, and razor-sharp wind blades slicing hard wood, blasting away anyone who gets close. His final analysis is simple. His magic is incredibly strong with absolutely no openings. He really is at the level of a top contender. But Q isn't about to give up so easily. He's determined to reach the top using his own brand of magic. With that thought, he charges straight ahead once more. Safe behind his protective wind barrier, Cedius calmly declares that no matter how many times Q tries, he'll never touch him. Q is violently sent flying backward, yet a knowing smirk begins to form on the corner of his lips. Noticing that grin, Cedius is left completely confused. Suddenly, a sharp wooden spike erupts from the ground, piercing his shoulder before instantly retreating back into the earth, leaving him utterly stunned. What is this? Q kindly offers an explanation, pointing out that his opponent's wind barrier doesn't protect him from below. These plants dig deep into the earth and can sprout up from absolutely anywhere. Actually, they are called rhizomes, not roots. Glancing at a familiar figure in the stands, Cedius clicks his tongue in annoyance. After a brief pause, Q asks if he really cares about Professor Boss that much. They don't seem like a good match at all, especially with Boss scowling down at the arena. Cedius's answer is simple: he is strong and he guides me. But Q doesn't buy that for a second. Just for that? You don't need his lessons since you come from a prestigious noble family, don't you? Hearing this, CDS falls silent before sharing his past. In my clan, magic power is everything. Age and gender don't matter, only the strongest rules. Because of this, everyone is a rival fighting for the inheritance, and even my own father refused to teach me magic. Hearing that, Q mutters to himself about how pretty messed up that family dynamic is. CDS concludes that following the professor is simply his best shot at growing stronger. With their talk finished, the battle immediately resumes. Are we done talking? That shoulder you hit still hurts like crazy. As the crowd watches the terrifying buildup of mana and fear, Q can only offer a tense, nervous smile. A giant dragon crafted from pure wind materializes. Let's end this, Cydia says as the wind dragon roars and charges. He is truly serious now. Deep down, Q realizes something. I used to think combat mages were just playing around while I was the only one putting in real effort to survive, without a shred of natural talent. But he's right, having raw gift doesn't make you inherently superior or better than everyone else. Pedigree, talent, or past, it all weighs the same here. Because of that, he chuckles, whispering a quiet promise to himself. Cius, right now I genuinely want to beat you. They stand face to face like sworn enemies. What are you even trying to declare? A massive magic circle glows on the ground. Rise as my finest seed. Instantly, giant wooden branches erupt outward and lush green leaves explode from the dirt. Right on the massive trunk, another magic circle glows, summoning the tree named Gel. Normally, this species takes years to grow giant, but forcing it to mature in seconds burns through far more mana than any other plant. The dragon and the giant tree clash violently, but the more mana he pours in, the higher those branches stretch. Violent winds force Quill to stumble back. The dragon finally shatters the tree, letting Cius breathe a quiet sigh of relief. A massive branch gets swept into the sky, but wait, that is not a branch, that is the actual giant trunk. Cius never expected his eyes to play tricks on him like this. He gasps in sheer shock. What? Quill explains the trick. This particular plant has incredible vitality. Even a tiny broken twig can suddenly swell into a giant monster. Since Cius is fully focused on casting his wind dragon, his guard is completely down. Boom, the massive trunk crashes directly onto the arena floor, trapping him. Now Cius is desperately trying to crawl out from underneath it. Standing right above him is Quill, sword pointed directly at his chest. The humiliation is almost too much to bear, but Cius has to admit it. I lose, he mutters, drowning out Quill's heavy panting. The announcer's loud voice echoes through the stadium, declaring Quill the official winner. The crowd instantly erupts in absolute disbelief. No way, that healer actually won. Taking down Cius in a one-on-one duel? Maybe that guy is actually a beast. Meanwhile, Cius just stares at the ground in silent defeat. Quill politely extends his hand to help him up. That was pretty close, Quill says. You really are a natural genius. But instead of accepting the compliment, Cius just sighs, muttering that he still is not good enough. Quill blinks in surprise. What do you mean by that? That was an amazing match. But right then, a cold, disappointed voice booms. Watch this, a massive bolt of lightning suddenly crashes straight down onto the stage, kicking up thick smoke. Cius takes the full force of the shock and immediately passes out. Boss casually walks over, kicks the heavy tree trunk off his student, and picks him up with one hand like a rag doll. Boss walks off with Cius, his face twisted in pure anger and disappointment. You failed, he growls. I am going to retrain you from scratch. The crowd gasps in shock at how brutal this guy is. Boss forces his harsh views on everyone, his anger boiling over. The crowd down there agrees with me, he sneers. There is no way on earth I will ever accept a healer taking first place. Facing his terrifying aura, the crowd freezes, too scared to even move. But Quill is not backing down. He is the only one brave enough to stand up and speak his mind. Furious, Quill steps forward. That is going way too far, he yells. I won this match fairly, but that does not mean Cius is weak. It was an even fight, and if we ran it back... Boss glares at him with terrifying, murderous eyes, refusing to hear a single word of protest. Do not talk back to me, he snarls. A good match? A promising future? You fools, strength is all that matters on the battlefield. Losing means being treated like trash and dying, he cold-bloodedly states. That is it. Quill can feel how twisted this man's personality really is. He feels incredibly angry for Cius. How can a master treat his own student like this? Quill points to himself, standing his ground. Well, I defeated Cius fairly, didn't I? I proved my strength on this stage. Boss's inner fury reaches a boiling point, his voice dropping to a terrifying low whisper. Boss steps right into Quill's space, radiating pure pressure, but the young healer holds his ground. Sure, we healers do not fight on the front lines. Quill argues calmly, but we keep everyone alive with our recovery magic. It is a division of labor. If we do not work together, humanity will literally fall apart. Boss goes dead silent for a moment, his harsh expression not softening even a tiny bit. Boss casually pats the dust off Quill's collar, his tone chillingly cold. My students held the front lines just to buy time so you weak healers could run away. And yet, you cowards still got absolutely wiped out by low-level monsters while running. My heavily injured students, who had nowhere left to go, ended up dying because of your pathetic incompetence. You cannot even survive on a real battlefield, let alone save my people. Why should someone like Cius have to sacrifice his future for worthless trash like you? As his harsh words cut off, Boss clenches his fist, ready to strike. Quill stands frozen. Hearing the raw pain buried inside this man, he realizes the professor actually has a valid point. Suddenly, dark memories of the bloody battlefield flash vividly in his mind. I am counting on you. From now on, you will be the absolute greatest healer in the world. I should have fought with my own hands. If you are weak, you will never protect anyone. With your incredible power, I must fight and keep pushing myself forward. But an era of far more vicious monsters is rapidly approaching. When that dark day comes, those with power can no longer afford to be selfish. He tightens his hands into white-knuckled fists, speaking slowly. If that is the case, then people like me with absolutely nothing have to become even stronger. If I manage to defeat you, will you finally recognize my strength? Boss slowly lowers his hand. He smirks, treating his words like a complete joke before turning to the referee. Hey, the moment you declare the start of this match, take that boy and get out of here. The referee blinks in sheer disbelief, trying to confirm. Professor Boss, you cannot be serious about fighting him. Boss answers with absolute authority. Since I run these selections, I am the one who decides the rules. As the referee carries Cius away, he casts a deeply worried glance back at Quill. But the young healer's eyes hold nothing but pure unwavering determination. You can practically feel the tension as the referee just shakes his head and sighs. With Cius safely out of the way, a far more dangerous battle is officially about to begin. Special match Boss vs. Quill begins. Boss cracks his knuckles, immediately generating a terrifying wave of dark energy. He looks down on his opponent with absolute arrogance. I will show you just how pathetic your actual level is, he sneers. Boss's suffocating pressure makes Quill sweat. My mana is almost completely drained, and this guy is easily the strongest opponent I have ever faced. A head-on fight is a guaranteed loss. I have to rely on this trick first. Watching Quill weave his spell, Boss launches a lightning-fast counter, mocking his speed as way too slow. Quill looks up, the blinding light of Boss's magic illuminating his face. The sheer scale of the attack is incredibly destructive, tearing through the air like a localized storm. Thick smoke and dust billow outward from the massive explosion. Boss smugly holds up 3 fingers. Let me teach you 3 exact reasons why my victory over you is absolute. First, an overwhelming distance to fully suppress and control the enemy. Second, blinding speed that leaves absolutely no room for counterattacks. And finally, a devastating one-shot finishing blow that completely crushes the opponent. It is over. Or can you not even hear my voice anymore? Just when he thinks his opponent is completely down, Quill's raspy voice echoes through the dust. Where exactly was that one-shot finish? Despite the professor's expectations, Quill is still kneeling firmly on the ground. His body is a bit scraped up, but nothing too serious. Everything went exactly according to his plan. Knowing Boss uses unique lightning magic, he knew he had to avoid taking a direct blast to his core. No matter how skilled I am, if my brain or heart takes a direct hit, even healing magic won't save me in time. So I created a highly conductive path using my own blood vessels, directing the current from my arms straight down to my feet and into the ground to disperse the shock. Even so, this was barely enough to survive. Gaining confidence, Quill prepares to launch his counterattack. Boss lazily scratches his head, still looking down on the kid. It seems you had to struggle with everything you had just to survive that single hit. But Quill barely pays attention to the trash talk. He focuses on gathering his mana, attempting to physically reinforce his body, but suddenly something goes horribly wrong. The technique fails, and his completely drained body collapses forward. He stares down at his hands, his whole body shaking violently. What is this? He cannot put any strength into his limbs. Bot smirks and explains the mechanism of his technique. The absolute rule is simple. Anyone struck by his death lightning will be completely paralyzed and unable to move. Quill refuses to back down. He lifts his hand even with a dagger impaling his palm and prepares to strike back, whispering that this is bad. Meanwhile, the professor's smug smirk returns to his face. He looks down at Quill with pure contempt, mocking him for how confident he was just moments ago. Bout charges forward with a direct, devastating strike that seems even more powerful than his last attack. Up in the stands, Ejika is so worried for him that she is on the verge of tears. Quill struggles to block the endless barrage of magic, cursing in his mind that the old man is incredibly strong and his signature spell has absolutely 0 openings. Now he understands why the professor is so arrogant, but his resolve does not shake. He has decided he will win. With that final thought locked in, Quill slams his hand onto the ground. He declares it is his very last seed and his final magic spell plant manipulation. He commands the giant water guardian tree to grow. As the words leave his lips, a massive tree erupts from the ground as a shield. Quill calculated this move perfectly. This species absorbs and stores massive amounts of water from deep underground. Using it as a shield will easily disperse the incoming lightning. Yet Bout remains ridiculously confident, mocking Quill and asking what a simple tree could possibly do to stop him. But right after that question, absolute shock fills Quill's eyes, and everyone in the stands is left completely speechless with their mouths wide open. The giant defensive tree Quill just summoned is instantly shattered in half by Bout's overwhelming magic power. Staring at his ruined shield, Quill screams in utter disbelief that this cannot be happening. Bout slowly walks toward him with heavy, confident steps, his face still dripping with absolute disdain. Bout mocks him, asking if that pathetic defensive spell was really his ultimate trump card. But as Bout steps closer, look at this, a single mushroom sprouts on the broken wood. Suddenly, like a wild chemical reaction, a massive forest of mushrooms multiplies without limit, leaving the arrogant professor completely shocked and screaming, trying to figure out what the hell is happening. Quill pulls the blade from his hand with a grim smile, glad to see his plan worked so well. Certain plants and fungal spores grow at terrifying speeds after being struck by lightning. A forest burnt to ash by lightning provides the perfect competitor-free environment for them to thrive, after all. This farm blower mushroom is one of those species, but rapid growth is not its only unique trait. Bot watches the thousands of growing mushrooms in absolute disbelief, wondering what is happening. Just moments later, a bizarre, suffocating sensation spreads through his body, sending a sudden wave of panic straight to his core. Staring down at his trembling arm, Bout feels a heavy shockwave pulsing through his veins, realizing his entire body has gone completely numb. Seizing this golden opportunity, Quill dashes forward, channeling every ounce of his remaining strength into a massive fist. Even faced with a direct punch, Bout does not panic. He actually smiles, launching a lightning-fast counterattack. He punches Quill square in the chest, sending him flying backward before the young mage can even react to the sudden retaliation. Quill coughs up blood, and seeing him kneeling on the floor only deepens the professor's disgust. Bout calls him a fool, declaring that his close combat skills are far superior. After all, his special magic allows him to command electricity itself. By using electricity to reinforce his body and move at extreme speeds, a little numbness is absolutely nothing to him. Quill's body trembles violently as he squeezes his fists against the ground to prop himself up, still unable to believe it. It cannot be. Even after going this far, did he really fail to win? Bout's eyes grow incredibly sharp. He speaks with a cold, absolute tone, as if passing a final judgment, telling Quill that he has officially lost. With those words, Bout raises his hand to deliver the finishing blow. But right then, Veronica steps in, pointing her blade directly at him and demanding he stop. She tells Professor Bout that enough is enough and that he is taking things way too far. Bout pauses for a second, letting out a mocking laugh before turning to shove her sword aside. He sneers at Veronica, telling her not to interfere since she is just a rookie. From the ground, a shivering Quill realizes his savior has arrived. Veronica wants to end it right here, pointing out that the match is already over and pushing any further will only cause needless injuries to the boy. Bout instantly fires back, claiming the brat can heal himself and still has fight left in him. Veronica keeps defending Quill, arguing that self-healing only works when he has mana, and his reserve is completely depleted right now. Growing furious, Bout prepares to attack Veronica too, shouting that Quill only lacks the will to fight. Refusing to back down, Veronica channels her own magical aura, getting ready for a clash and declaring there is nothing left to discuss. The two powerful mages prepare to clash, signaling an epic battle about to explode. But luckily, a booming voice suddenly echoes through the arena, completely halting their fierce battle intents before they can make a move. Anium steps forward and tells them both to stop. Gazing down at them from above, the principal reminds them that letting two high-level professors fight here is the most pointless thing they could possibly do. He floats down slowly, landing as light as a feather. Anium turns his gaze to the aggressive professor and calmly commands Bout to stand down. Though his eyes are closed, his expression carries a sharp, undeniable warning that Bout immediately feels. Knowing he cannot disobey this direct order, Bout scratches his head and reluctantly backs off, muttering fine. Principal Anium then turns to Veronica, his stern expression softening completely compared to how he just looked at Bout. He apologizes to Veronica for not explaining things clearly beforehand. Clearing his throat with a few soft coughs to gather everyone's attention, Principal Anium officially announces that the field training selection exam ends right here, ordering everyone to disperse immediately. Without lingering, the spectators slowly exit the arena. Meanwhile, down on the field, Quill is still struggling hard to heal his battered body. Grimacing in intense pain, he curses under his breath. His mana is completely drained, and his healing is stalled. He hates losing. Is the gap between them really this massive? Suddenly, without a word, Veronica sweeps him off his feet. Quill is completely flustered, barely managing to squeak out her name. Calmly, Professor Veronica comforts him, saying he did an amazing job and telling him to stop pushing himself and just rest. Quill buries his blushing face in embarrassment and quietly agrees, though deep down he refuses to accept this defeat. Doing well is simply not enough. Later that night, walking down the street, he keeps reflecting on Bout's power, recognizing him as a top-tier offensive mage. It is not just raw power, Bout's tactical precision is on an entirely different level. Yet, even with absolute monsters like him, humanity still went extinct in his past life. He must become stronger. Reaching his destination, Quill opens the door to the office and politely asks for permission to enter. Principal Anium is waiting inside, warmly welcoming him and expressing his relief that the young mage has finally arrived. Stroking his long beard, the principal asks about his recovery, noting that the wounds seem to be healing just as predicted. Without waiting for further questions, Quill explains that once his mana recovers, minor injuries like this mend almost instantly. Principal Anium laughs heartily and assures him that participating in the upcoming field training will not be an issue at all. Quill is stunned by the news and asks to make absolutely sure if he is really allowed to join. Anium treats it as a given, pointing out that Quill won the main event. Naturally, besides him, she and Ejika also managed to pass the selection. Quill still cannot believe his ears, arguing that Professor Bout declared everyone failed, and besides, he did not actually win his fight. Principal Anium chuckles, explaining that the professor pulls this exact same stunt every single year. This revelation catches Quill off guard once more, asking if Bout really does this every year. Anium explains the professor's true motive. Bout claims everyone failed to create intense pressure, aiming to force the students to unlock their true potential. But in the end, he still lets a few promising students pass. After all, real-world field training is packed with lethal dangers, and this is just his awkward way of being a caring teacher. Quill silently notes that Bout is incredibly clumsy when it comes to expressing care. Yet Quill admits the logic makes sense. In his past life, Bout fought tirelessly on the front lines for humanity. There is absolutely no doubt that the old man was a true hero who gave everything to save their world. Even though Quill cannot stand the man's arrogant attitude, he still respects his pride as a warrior. Without wasting any more time, Principal Anium officially hands Quill his first real assignment. Now Quill must form a party with students from other academies as an offensive mage, taking on official monster subjugation quests. Quill is left momentarily speechless, silently repeating the words monster subjugation over and over in his mind. This will be his very first time facing monsters since his regression. 5 years from now, in his previous life, those exact same beasts were the direct cause of humanity's total annihilation. First, let's talk about where they actually come from. Originally, the word monster just meant any creature possessing magic. Not all of them were hostile toward humans. Sure, they occasionally attacked people, but that was just basic survival in the wild. If you actually understood their ecology, they were quite useful neighbors to have around. But in about 2 years, everything is going to change with a blood moon. Watch closely, this is where the real nightmare begins. Beasts under that red light turn incredibly savage, uniting to wipe out humanity for pure slaughter. 2 years after that, the Demon King descends. Humanity is quickly pushed to the brink, nations collapse, and countless people die. Offensive mages were highly valued, but because of that, they fell one by one. The same went for the best knights, while healers never made it to the front lines. Once the defense lines shattered, everyone was doomed to die. By the time I died, almost no one was left to fight. Humanity faced extinction in just a few months. Clenching his fists, Quill silently swears that he will never let that nightmare happen again. He needs to become far stronger this time to stop the massive monster invasion. He has to find the source of that blood moon madness. Seeing him deep in thought, Elder Aonizam strokes his beard. That's quite a look of determination. Your eyes look just like the first day we met. The elder gently encourages him, saying he'll do just fine. But Quill is pretty worried. Fine? How are the instructors even viewing this field training? Ao steps up and pats his shoulder. Looking amused, he admits he is curious, but mostly just wanted to chat. Quill stares back with a highly confused, innocent look on his face. After finishing his talk, Quill heads to the assembly point for the field training. Both he and Ejika are already waiting, only missing Sias. After a brief wait, they finally hear someone coming. Sias arrives, accompanied by a massive muscular boss. Quill steps forward to greet him first, mentioning he heard the teacher is only strict because he cares. But Professor Boz gets right in his face with a fierce roar. Standing tall with his hands on his hips, his voice is pure aggression. I don't know what you're on, but a weak piece of trash who can't even land a hit shouldn't act so smug. Embarrassed by the harsh words, Quill softly mutters a yes. Internally, he groans that the man's attitude hasn't changed at all. Professor Boz walks past, letting out a loud snort. Focus on the field training if you understand, you idiot. But thanks for looking out for Sias. Sias steps up from behind, quietly adding his thanks too. Startled by his sudden appearance, Quill notes he is still as quiet as ever. Sias raises a fist, punching the air to show his determination and thank him. This way, he can go all out in training to grow even stronger. That's Professor Boz's philosophy. As long as you survive to get payback, nothing else really matters. Quill matches his high energy, raising a fist for a fist bump. Keep getting stronger, he says. Sias cracks a rare happy smile and bumps his fist as a silent promise. Watching them head over to Professor Boz, he feels quite grateful. Having more highly talented offensive mages will definitely tip the scales in their favor during the upcoming war. From a distance, Veronica calls out that they should get moving too. Quill eagerly agrees, highly anticipating what lies ahead on this journey. Inside the carriage, Veronica updates them on their field training as they approach the ancient forest. This time, Quill and his team are tasked with hunting down goblins lurking deep within the woods. 3 students from Quad, Hick, and Shinburn form a foursome team led by a supporting instructor. Curiously, Ejika asks if the team members have already been chosen, which Veronica quickly confirms. Since Ejika is on her team, she feels relieved to avoid total strangers. Even if Professor Veronica is a bit intimidating, still she notes Quill's teammates are anything but ordinary. Upon arrival, Veronica steps down first, announcing that the Shinburn Academy representatives have already made it. Stepping off the carriage, Quill tries to recall any details about them from his past life. He knows of Shinburn, but they are complete strangers in this timeline. Suddenly, a sweet voice calls out his name as Mei Gonzon rushes forward, giving Quill a tight hug. She happily exclaims she's been waiting for this day. Her sudden move leaves everyone absolutely stunned, while a breathless Quill politely raises his hands, completely unsure how to react. He speaks up, politely apologizing because he doesn't know who she is. Realizing she went too far, Mei lets go. "Ah," she says, "we didn't get to chat properly last time." She then formally introduces herself. "I am Mei Gonzon, granddaughter of Principal Izam Gonzon from Quat Academy." Hearing this, Quill finally recognizes the girl from that fateful day. Her face flashes in his mind. Can you believe this kid's luck? He never expected to reunite right here with the frail girl he once treated at the principal's estate. Quill kindly asks how she has been feeling since then. Flashing a bright grin, Mei flexes her arms to show she is fully recovered, apologizing for not thanking him properly back then. Quickly waving it off, Quill notes her grandfather already recommended him to Quat Academy, but pointing to herself, Mei insists she really wanted to find a personal way to return the favor. Since she lacked magic talent, she joined Shinburn Academy and poured everything into swordsmanship. Thanks to that effort, she actually ended up topping the Academy's selection trials. Shocked by her talent, Quill asks if she was really the top student. Mei shyly covers her smile, admitting she has a knack for swords. Quill is completely amazed. Staring at this petite girl, he can't help but wonder. Going from bedridden to top of her class in such a short time, is she some kind of monster herself? Stepping closer, she takes his hands, promising to be of real help to him. That is exactly why they are on the same team, leaving Quill feeling pretty happy. Then let's do our best together, Quill smiles. It finally clicks that this is what the principal meant by relying on him. Just then, Mei spots another carriage approaching them. She quickly grabs his arm and drags him along. The Hick Academy group is here. Let's go greet them. Watching them run off, Ajika marvels at how incredibly fast they bonded. Veronica agrees, adding they should lift the team's spirit a bit too. Mei pulls Quill to the carriage, looking around for their teammates, calling out for Sir Jen and Sir Top. Hearing that name, Quill reacts instantly. Did she say Jen? A calm voice from inside grumbles not to rush him, and a man slowly steps out. Introducing himself, he asks if they are the students joining his team. He is instructor Jen from Hick Academy, and seeing him leaves Quill absolutely thrilled. Master. This man was his healing magic master from his past life, the absolute greatest healer he ever knew. Quill is literally trembling with joy to be on his team again. Behind Jen, another student grumbles, telling his teacher to move so he can get off. As he steps down, Mei greets him, guessing his name is Top. Mei introduces herself as Meirun from Shinburn. Top pushes up his glasses with a polite greeting, but as his vision clears, seeing Mei holding Quill's hand hits him like a lightning bolt. His cheerful mood instantly vanishes, replaced by cold indifference. Unaware of the shift, Quill happily introduces himself as Quill from Quat Academy. Turning away, Top mutters with disappointment and clear disdain, an offensive mage. Once the introductions wrap up, Jen simply turns and leaves with a loud yawn. Alright, this is Jennen's group, so do whatever you want. I am only here to observe. Mahdi looks at his incredibly laid-back attitude, totally surprised. Is that really how he operates? Kwai, on the other hand, is completely used to this by now. After all, his master has always been exactly like this. Kwai silently follows close behind. He makes a sudden proposal, "Can I call you master?" Jennen is quite surprised by the sudden request. "Why call me that?" he asks. Kwai quickly explains his reason. He can also use healing magic, but since he doesn't have a teacher right now, he wants to learn from Jen. Hearing this, Jennen is absolutely stunned to learn about Kwai's hidden abilities. An offensive mage who can actually use healing magic. Jennen remembers hearing some rumors about this, thinking it is a pretty brilliant squad setup. Kwai asks him once more just to confirm it. "Is that really okay, master?" Jennen does not care much about formal titles. He accepts it easily, telling Kwai to call him whatever he likes. Overhearing their conversation, Mahdi immediately chimes in to join the fun. "If Kwai is calling you that, then I will call you master too." Top, running right behind like Mahdi's little shadow, calls out to stop her. "Wait, Mahdi." Ij is completely amazed by how fast Kwai and his crew adapt. They sure got close fast. Veronica does not want to lose. We cannot let ourselves fall behind either. In this subjugation campaign, every single squad is assigned to a specific designated area. We will use this tent as our base of operations. The Goblin territory is located a bit deeper inside, so Kwai and Master should head out immediately. In real combat, healers usually stay back at the base instead of going to the front lines. That is why I did not participate in my past life. On their way, Mahdi asks a curious question. Even though Master is a healer, is he really heading straight to the front? Jinan quickly explains the situation. "Basically, I am just here to supervise this whole thing, so I am fine. Do whatever you guys want. I do not really like strict rules anyway." Mahdi quickly matches his incredibly laid-back pace. "Then I will not hold back at all." Kui hesitantly points a finger right behind her. By the way, not holding back means Mahdi instantly catches on to his meaning. Course, she quickly prepares to draw her weapon. Holding a massive blade with both hands, Mahdi is filled with pure confidence. "With all my strength, I am going to swing this sword to the absolute limit." After wiping out the monsters, Mahdi cheerfully dances on the ground, eventually leaping right onto a towering pile of dead corpses she just created to celebrate her victory. This insane contrast makes Kwai seriously wonder, is this really the same girl? the same gentle-faced girl who was just calling him Master Kwai. Ma-Di leaps into the air, swinging her giant sword with fierce determination, leaving Kui looking up in absolute awe. Look at this, every single strike of Ma-Di's sword style carries terrifying power. She might just clear out this entire place all on her own. Just as Kwai snaps out of it, Ma-Di suddenly freezes, her eyes widening in shock as she looks at the horde of monsters drawing closer. She gasps, there are way too many of them. Jinan watches her and sighs. She is definitely impressive, but she leaves far too many openings. That young lady is great at wide attacks, but she is weak when surrounded. Go cover her. Hearing this, Kwai quickly responds, understood, sir. He stands silent for a moment, filled with quiet excitement. Finally, he is about to fight some real monsters. Suddenly, a beast rushes forward with razor-sharp teeth and a loud roar that completely shatters the peaceful silence. Kui's expression darkens as he whispers to himself. Those terrifying monsters. Suddenly, a hand gently touches his shoulder from behind, sending a sharp shiver down his spine. A calm voice suddenly speaks up. Why are your shoulders so tense? Just relax. Kwai looks up, a mix of deep thought and mild surprise on his face, staying silent. After a brief pause, he gives a warm, friendly smile. Yes, Kwai says. He thinks to himself, just like back then. Jinan touches his fingertips together, instantly releasing a blinding burst of energy. Kwai raises his hand, activating his body reinforcement magic. Digging his toes into the ground, he gets into position, ready to burst forward. With incredible speed, he lunges, wiping out half the monsters with just a few swift slashes. Their backs instantly press together. I am counting on you for the other side. Yes! Kwai quickly dominates the field, swinging his powerful sword as blood splatters everywhere, letting out a relaxed, satisfied sigh. So this is what fighting with healing magic is really like. Within moments, the entire pack of monsters is completely annihilated, leaving bodies scattered all over the ground. Not bad at all, he tells himself. It actually works wonders against monsters. Kwai holds up his knife, staring at it. The dagger Professor Veronica gave him is incredibly sharp, a world away from Unit's weapon. Standing nearby, Unut yells out, what are you muttering about after stealing that? Meanwhile, Ma-Di is practically glowing with joy, her incredible sword skills and explosive power on full display. Master Kwai, you are absolutely amazing. Standing right in the middle, Jenin suddenly speaks up. Alright, that is enough for our first day. Let us head back. Hearing this, Ma-Di's joyful smile instantly fades. Mei-Di looks down, totally exhausted. I suddenly feel so much lighter, she says. Kwai replies that is all thanks to Master. He secretly thinks to himself, usually healing magic is measured by how severe a wound or illness it can cure. But Jinin's real strength lies in his sheer recovery speed. He heals people so naturally that you do not even realize magic is being used on you. Because of this, anyone who is not a healer would never understand how truly incredible his skill is. I actually asked Master about this once. Suddenly, he waves his hand with a faint smile. I cannot go around showing off like that. As long as they are healed, that is all that matters. He walks away, leaving falling leaves in the lonely forest, unrecognized by the world. And yet the greatest healer in the entire world is Jinan. So, this is a pretty great team. Sitting around the dinner table, Jenin speaks up, shattering the quiet atmosphere. Today gets a perfect score. Top suddenly chimes in as well. Everyone came back without a single scratch, so I did not have to do anything at all. Jinan raises his bowl, praising him loudly. No way, providing recovery through meals back at the base is also a vital healer duty, right? That bowl right there is Top's special recovery soup. Top looks up and speaks softly. You really did a great job, Master. Jinan snorts, teasingly boastful. Well, that delicious flavor is partly due to my own special seasoning. Sitting across the table, Ma-Di laughs and praises him. Master is seriously amazing. Not only as a healer, but you also seem to know the front lines so well. I wonder why. Jenin nods in satisfaction, explaining calmly. The front lines are where the most people get hurt. If you treat them there, that basic knowledge naturally starts piling up. Top adds Master frequently travels to many different dangerous locations. That is why he rarely teaches formal classes. Kwai takes a sip of his hot soup, tasting it. Aren't those places incredibly dangerous? I have total confidence in my ability to escape, you know. Kwai says to himself, you say that, but unless you need to save someone, you never actually run away. Losing Master was a devastating blow to humanity, not just because he was an outstanding healer, but because he was one of the very few who knew what to do in real combat. Kwai thinks to himself, destiny might have changed for me and the others, but there is still some time before that tragedy occurs. His eyes narrow, looking deeper in thought than ever. Suddenly, he lifts his bowl and gulps down the soup, swearing to himself that in this lifetime, he will never let his master die. Kwai quickly finishes his food. Jenin watches him, chuckling warmly. You have quite an appetite, don't you? Grab another bowl. Master is truly awesome. The atmosphere inside the small tent is livelier than ever. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure is silently organizing his army under the cover of the dark night. An outstretched hand reveals a glowing eye symbol radiating an immense sinister power, the power of the red moon. Right here the beasts grin savagely, their eyes bloodshot and glowing red. And look at this, a massive foot steps out from the shadows. That is Ott, an elite monster. The next day we head out to hunt goblins again. We shared some solid tips from yesterday's fight, and our team synergy is honestly getting way better. We even joke that at this rate, we might wrap up the whole mission by tomorrow. But suddenly the mood shifts as all three of us stand on the soft green grass with highly uneasy faces. Suddenly calls out, causing Quill and Ma Di to spin around in sheer confusion. He tells us we need to turn back right now. Mei Di immediately objects, demanding to know why since they haven't hunted a single monster today. Quill wonders if there is danger ahead. Master Ren stays calm, explaining that the real problem is the complete lack of any tracks or signs of life. These goblins are extremely territorial, so they should have ambushed us the moment we stepped in, just like yesterday. Yet we have walked deep into their zone without spotting a single creature. The master sighs, adjusting his posture before speaking in a low, serious tone. He admits he does not know what is going on, but warns us to always trust our survival instincts on the battlefield. Ren turns around and waves his hand to call off the hunt for today. He orders us to head back and contact any nearby squad to regroup. Mahdi speaks up, mentioning that Professor Veronica's team should be based very close to this area. Hearing this, Ren turns back with a gentle smile, praising her for being so well informed. As they move out, Quill keeps his eyes peeled, scanning the dense trees. Pushing through the desolate forest, the total lack of wildlife feels incredibly eerie. It goes completely against normal beast behavior. Mahdi leads the way, clearing the thick branches to guide them toward the main path near the neighboring base. Bright sunlight filters through the leaves, but despite the warmth, Quill cannot shake off memories of his tragic past life. Wait, look at this. Quill suddenly freezes as his face goes pale. Up ahead, he spots a small hand tightly bound by thick ropes, and a frightened, gloomy face staring down at the forest floor. It is Ajika tied tightly to a tall wooden pole. Seeing her friend, Mei Di rushes forward with a confident shout, promising to save her, totally unaware of the hidden danger right beneath her feet. Suddenly, Ma Di plunges straight into a deep pit trap, getting covered in mud. Quill screams in panic, but she calmly pulls something out with a determined look. She quickly tears a wooden spear out of the muddy ground to shield herself. Looking up with a reassuring smile, she tells them she is fine, leaving Quill and Ren completely speechless. A trap? They actually used Ejika as bait. Before Quill can even process this, Master Ren jumps right in front of him, shouting warnings that a massive wave of monsters is heading their way. A sharp spear flies right at them. Dodging quickly, they raise their weapons in absolute fury as they realize they are completely surrounded by an aggressive horde of snarling monsters. Meanwhile, Mahdi struggles and climbs out of the muddy pit. Quill's eyes turn dead silent and dangerously sharp. He mutters that they are surrounded as the beasts close in without any hesitation. Quill curses under his breath. These creatures are actively hunting humans, showing the exact same organized movement patterns that usually happen right after a dreaded Red Moon event. But wait, the Red Moon is not supposed to happen for another 2 years. Has the tragedy already begun? Just then, Ichika lets out a soft, painful groan. Quill turns his head in surprise, realizing she is still alive. There is no time to overthink this. Quill prepares himself, knowing he trained to fight for moments exactly like this. Gripping her massive sword, Ma Di looks at the swarming enemies, relieved that Ejika is still drawing breath. Leaping down, Quill yells at his team to leave the crowd to him. Combining his plant magic with his combat training, he commands his spell to manifest. The monsters roar back in anger, refusing to back down. Noticing Ma Di looking slightly tense, Quill looks back and tells her she does not need to fight on the front lines. Staying behind the close-range fighters will let her strike their blind spots much easier. She nods quickly, telling him to focus on charging his magical energy with precision. Her body suddenly erupts in a blinding fiery aura. For a split second, she pauses in disbelief at the enemy numbers, before unleashing a massive area attack to shatter their formation, screaming for them to take her full power. One monster tries to sneak up on her from behind, but Quill intercepts it, cutting it down in a flash. He reassures her that he will cover her back and handle any stragglers. With the beast dead on the grass behind her, Master Ren yells out in praise from afar. He tells them to keep it up while he rescues Ed Ika, and Quill shouts back, trusting him. Suddenly, a cold shiver runs down Quill's spine. His eyes widen in sheer panic as he remembers that the Red Moon's influence makes these creatures incredibly feral and aggressive. Meanwhile, Ren rushes toward Ejika. He moves so fast that he completely misses the shifting ground beneath him, right before a massive shadow rises to block his path, showing how well these beasts coordinate. An ogre! The beast had been lying in wait underground. Quill realizes he is too far away to help as the monster raises a massive fist. Just like in his past life, his master never abandoned the wounded. Back then, Ren told him he would become the world's greatest healer. Remembering this, Quill grits his teeth in frustration, helplessly watching the scene unfold. No matter how skilled a healer is, living like that would get them killed in every single lifetime. As the fist swings down, Quill screams out for his master, who momentarily freezes. The giant beast lunges forward with terrifying power. Yet Ren simply chuckles to himself, wondering if the creature had just cast a physical reinforcement spell on its own body. Wait, did he just use healing magic as an offensive weapon? The ogre glares with bloodshot eyes, desperately trying to crush everything around it. It swings its massive fists wildly, but Ren easily evades the deadly blows. With a swift leap, he launches himself off the muddy ground, slipping right behind the giant beast for a surprise counterattack. Ren gently taps the back of its neck, whispering a soft goodbye. A brilliant blue light erupts, instantly paralyzing the massive creature with fear. Sensing the fatal threat from behind, the ogre groans in pain. With one flawless silent strike, Ren brings the massive beast crashing down onto the grass. Quill immediately runs over, shouting in amazement. Quill asks about the technique, but Ren just chuckles. He softly replies that a good master must also learn from his own student. He admits he just came up with the trick on the spot. Both Quill and Mahdi beam with excitement, praising his incredible skills, before Ren calmly unties Ejika and orders them to prepare to move. Ren tells them to retreat while they still have the chance. Quill looks at the chaotic horde and asks in a low voice why his master does not just wipe them out with his true power. Ren sighs, calling him a fool and explaining that he only put the ogre to sleep. As a healer, he has absolutely no intention of harming lives, even if they are monsters. The master claims the beast will actually feel refreshed when it wakes up. Watching his master walk ahead, Quill cannot help but smile. They have successfully broken through the enemy encirclement. After dealing with a few stubborn pursuers, the group finally manages to shake them off. Stopping in a quiet clearing, Ren immediately starts treating Ejika, gently calling out for the young girl to wake up. She suddenly opens her eyes in shock. Sitting up, she starts to ask where they are, but Mahdi quickly assures her she is safe. Quill politely apologizes before asking her what happened and why she was left out here alone. Ejika panics, clutching her head in absolute terror as she repeats the word back to them. She explains that yesterday's raid went smoothly without her holding anyone back, but disaster struck the moment she let her guard down. When she woke up this morning, Professor Veronica had completely vanished. Ejika recalls that the professor left a vague note telling them to wait, but gave no return time. After debating with the others, she somehow ended up venturing out alone to find her. His face darkened as he stared at her suspiciously. They must have pushed him into this, knowing he couldn't say no, he thought. Yep, that is classic Eek. But this is no joke, one wrong move and you are dead. None of us are actually prepared to face a real situation that is so different from classroom drills. Aisha did not answer, only continuing with a worried tone. After entering the forest, I smelled this sweet scent, and next thing I knew, I woke up here. Jenin clutched his head in frustration and muttered, so those oplins used sleeping gas. With that trap from earlier, plus them working with an ogre, what on earth is going on here? No, now is not the time to overthink this. Either way, your base should be pretty close by. Let's go meet up with the other two. The four of them lined up, moving out quickly, but Aisha, leading the way, suddenly froze and whispered, "Hold on." She looked up, a flash of panic on her face. Staring at the wreckage before them, she calmly said that the base had been destroyed. Mahdi suddenly spoke up. I did some research on this before. Oplins are highly territorial creatures, meaning they normally do not leave their domain. So a base set up outside their territory should have been completely safe. And yet, here we are. Why? Quill pondered the situation. Actively hunting humans is a trait of monsters that appear after the red moon, but right now there is just no logical explanation for this. Jenin crouched low, searching the surrounding area for clues before speaking up. There are no signs of a struggle here. It seems the two of them managed to run off somewhere. Let's split up. I will go search for those two. You three go meet up with Top and get out of this forest. Do not assume your base is safe. Stay alert. A chorus of quick agreements followed. Got it. We rushed back to our own base. Quill kicked the door open, calling out loudly. Top, are you okay? Hearing the noise while cooking, Top paused for a second before calling back. You guys are back? Lunch is not ready yet. Mahdi let out a massive sigh of relief. Thank goodness you are safe. Still clueless about what was happening, Top asked what was going on. Turning to leave with Aisha, he called back, explaining that they would talk later but had to go now. Suddenly, his eyes widened in shock. Both of them stared in surprise at what lay ahead as he whispered, "Looks like we have been followed." Aisha gaped in utter shock, yelling out in pure panic, but check this out, in response to all her fear, Quill just calmly tells her, "I was just thinking about how incredibly weak I used to be." Pausing for a second, she caught his drift and asked what he meant. He turned around, a smirk playing on his lips, and muttered, "Let's take it down. The three of us together, I know we can win." The monsters stood tall and imposing before them, looking absolutely terrifying. Quill observed them warily. Against a massive horde like this, teamwork between the three of us is our only shot at survival. He reminded Mahdi not to charge in recklessly like last time. She just needed to support the front line with her attacks. Moving instantly, Quill let the golem take the vanguard position. Constantly mapping out the best tactics, he told Ejika to use her fire to block the oplins. But the poor girl was filled with self-doubt. Someone as weak as me captured so easily earlier, she thought. Even so, Quill smiled to reassure her. "It is okay, your fire magic is going to be incredibly useful here." Hearing his praise, Ejika was stunned, struggling to calm her racing heart. Determined not to let Quill down, Ejika poured all her energies into her fire spell. In an instant, the goblins were surrounded by a wall of flames. Afraid of being burned alive, they began backing away. Ejika cheered, screaming that she did it. But before Quill could even breathe a sigh of relief, he noticed something highly unusual. Great, now they won't swarm us all at once, he thought. Then, out of the blazing fire, a massive, heavy foot slowly emerged. His muscular physique made the flames look like a joke as the ogre stepped forward in open provocation. Quill was shocked. It turned out this beast was on a completely different level compared to those oplins. Without hesitation, he ordered the wood golem to charge. At the same time, he directed Ejika to coordinate her timing. "Ejika, use fire!" She quickly agreed, wrapping the golem's body in brilliant flames. The flaming puppet slammed into the ogre, spreading fire all over his body and making him scream in agony. Seizing the opening, Quill called out to his ally. "Maudie!" Maudie immediately grasped the opportunity, shouting that she was on it. She swung her sword with incredible force, sending the beast crashing hard onto the ground. Maudie high-fived Ejika to celebrate. Great teamwork. But over on Quill's end, he still couldn't let his guard down. Sure, their coordination was great, but the beast was already pushing itself back up, making it clear their attacks weren't enough. Quill was sharp enough to realize the monster's true power. Regeneration. Maudie began to panic. Do we really have to keep doing this until he can't regenerate anymore? Quill didn't rush, lost in deep thought. There has to be a limit to his healing factor, right? There is no guarantee we can take him down just by repeating these attacks. To finish him off, we need a more decisive method. But then Ejika's panic scream pulled him back to reality. Something else is coming. Quill stood alone against a wave of powerful energy rushing at him, but as he slowly opened his eyes, a giant blade was right in front of his face. Yes, a monster was attacking him. A goblin? Looking further back, he saw Ott the ogre holding more goblins, ready to hurl them like projectiles. Quill wasted no time slashing the beast in front of him to pieces. Annoying snipers. Suddenly, Ejika spotted another monster diving from above. "They are coming again!" Maidie dashed forward, executing a powerful kick that blasted them away. It seemed she had a plan of her own. "I will send these back!" With that, she smacked the monster right back where it came from. This was the moment for her to prove just how reliable she could be. Looking at Quill, she said with a grin, "It looks like you have already got a plan, so leave this part to me." Hearing this, Quill focused on his role, telling her he was counting on her. Placing absolute trust in his allies, he knew Ejika and the wood golem would hold back the massive horde with area attacks, while Maudie deflected the thrown weapons. Quill charged into close combat with Ott. "Now I only have to deal with this ogre," he thought. The beast quickly sensed his presence, but Quill was a step ahead, easily dodging the counterattack. Just look at this clash through the rising dust. Ott keeps swinging and missing, while Quill delivers a brutal, slicing blow right between the monster's legs. This only enraged the beast further as he gnashed his teeth and roared through the forest. The deep chest wound Quill had just carved healed instantly, and the slash on his wrist closed right up. But without him even realizing it, Quill was already standing behind him. "You left yourself wide open." He deployed his magic right behind the beast. "This is the finishing blow." Without hesitation, Quill unleashed a powerful spell to defeat him in one shot. Suddenly, Ott's heart began to throb in intense pain. His entire body trembled as he let out a weak groan, his eyes rolling back as tears pooled. The scene turned incredibly gruesome as blood spluttered everywhere, making the final outcome clear to anyone watching. Over on his side, Quill flashed a triumphant grin. As the battle ended and Ott collapsed onto the grass, he could finally breathe a sigh of relief by forcing the ogre's regeneration to run on overdrive. The overloaded energy would cause its body to burst. It can't recover from this. Turning around, he confidently declared, "Now the only thing left to do is wipe out the remaining oplins." Following his declaration, the remaining monsters were sent to the afterlife. Heads and limbs lay scattered across the ground. The battle was finally over. Facing a battlefield piled high with monster corpses, Quill could finally relax. After all of this, Ejika was completely exhausted from the fight. Only Maudie was still bursting with energy as she rushed over, cheering about their total victory. Quill didn't hold back his praise for the girls, thanking them for their great coordination. Ejika, still looking pretty shaken, muttered that she was glad they managed. But Quill was still deeply worried. "We are not done yet." In another part of the forest, a violent whirlwind was tearing through everything in its path. Quill's group spotted the massive storm, and he immediately recognized it as Sidiou's work. Without hesitation, Quill led the way. "If we head toward that tornado, we should be able to meet up with the other squads." Meanwhile, Sidiot was busy stabilizing his magic when a sudden voice made him turn around to check. "Sidiot, are you alright?" Seeing Quill's group completely unharmed, Sidiot let out a sigh of relief, glad everyone was safe. Not far from them, a figure standing atop a pile of dead monsters called out. He is quite confused since this lineup feels totally off. Where are the professor and the others? Just then, Ren appears out of nowhere and answers that they are right here. Seeing him, Quill eagerly rushes over to greet him. "Master, you actually found both of them," Ren explains quickly. "It is pretty much like that, and then a sudden whirlwind appeared, so we headed right towards it." He pats Quill on the shoulder with absolute satisfaction. "Everyone did a great job. I trusted you all, and I am so glad no one is hurt." Getting praised, the whole group smiles from ear to ear, but Boss chimes in to remind them about something. "This celebration feels a bit early. Are we not still missing someone?" Hearing this, Kwong looks around once more. "Right, Professor Veronica still has many unresolved issues. I am not too worried about her, but we cannot just withdraw without saying anything to her." D immediately suggests a plan. "I will watch over the remaining students while those who can take care of themselves split up to search." The master seems to completely agree with this idea. Exactly. And the next person tasked with this is Quill. Go find her. Both guys immediately accept the order, shouting yes, understood. A bit later, Quill is on his search, enhancing his sense of hearing to detect any living creatures nearby. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes in his ears, but he is not quite skilled enough to distinguish it, forcing him to search manually. Looking in the direction of the noise, he spots the silhouette of Veronica. Found her? Nice. She seems to be perfectly safe. Quill quickly calls out to Professor Veronica, who is currently holding a glowing red stone in her hand. Hearing his voice, Veronica slowly turns her head around. The moment he sees it, Quill's face darkens. Could that light be related to the red moon? Meanwhile, she quickly slips the stone into her pocket. Veronica grumbles at Quill, asking what he is doing here. He has not even fully snapped out of his shock yet, but then, he remembers the main goal. What am I doing? Oh, I was looking for you, Professor. The monsters went wild, so training is probably over. Strangely, she coldly brushes past him. Oh, really? Then let us head back. Sensing something is quite off, Quill immediately calls out, telling her to wait. He directly asks what that stone was just now, but Veronica casually dismisses it, saying it is nothing. But Quill keeps pushing. I mean, how can she just pretend it is nothing? He asks what she has been doing all this time, his body trembling as the tension reaches a breaking point. Please answer me. Veronica freezes at his words, her voice dropping with pure killing intent. Sorry, but it seems I do not have a choice. Her eyes filled with a clear threat as she warns him to stay quiet about this. Quill himself has no idea why things turned out this way, but in the end she simply walks away without starting a fight. Do not worry, I am not going to do anything bad, she says. After that, I could not bring myself to say anything else to Professor Veronica. Even if I wanted to press further, I just lacked the strength. Most of all, I was not ready to doubt my past life ally, and so the outdoor training finally ends. The next day, after returning from the training session, Quill is still feeling extremely troubled. He barely slept last night. Does this mean Professor Veronica is somehow connected to the Crimson Red Moon? But while he is lost in thoughts about his past life, he spots something ahead. Right by the gate, two people are talking very secretly. Turns out, one of them is the exact person he was just thinking about. Professor Veronica. He quickly suppresses his magic power and hides his presence, pressing against a corner of the wall to eavesdrop. He absolutely cannot afford to get caught here. The man standing opposite Veronica asks quietly, confirming he received her request to leave the academy and wondering where she is going. But she simply gives a brief reply, saying it is personal, which immediately makes Quill's mind race. Personal business outside the academy must be related to that red stone. Determined, he realizes he has no choice but to follow her. Shortly after, Veronica leaves the school grounds with Quill closely tailing her like a true stalker. He feels quite rushed. He just followed her without giving it a second thought, and in the blink of an eye, Veronica completely vanishes from his sight. If he guessed wrong, he really is just a creepy stalker. Memories of his past life flood Quill's mind as he worries about being misunderstood. However, this is his chance to uncover the truth behind that tragedy. He swears to himself that he will clear Veronica's name. But a strange feeling makes Quill look around anxiously. Frankly, this is his first time returning to this place since his past life. Ever since he graduated from the Healer Academy, monsters had run rampant, sending him to various bloody battlefields. He is pretty sure he visited this town back then. While thinking, he stops to look at Veronica. If he remembers correctly, she is actually just buying bread at a tiny little bakery. Memories of his past life return as he holds a piece of bread. Looking at it, his heart flutters with joy. Honey bread? Without waiting, he takes a quick bite. This delicious taste instantly makes his eyes light up. It is so delicious, Veronica agrees, noting that this place is incredibly famous. Quill takes this opportunity to strike up a conversation, saying he comes from the countryside and rarely gets to buy food like this. You were born into a merchant family in the city, so you probably eat this quite often, right? Veronica calmly replies that yes, she does, but it is not because of her upbringing. Her rule is to always visit any bakery she sees. This makes Quill even more curious. Curious about her rule. Veronica does not hide it and slowly shares her life story. From traveling with her parents to growing up and fighting on various battlefields, she has met so many different people. Her eyes suddenly look incredibly thoughtful as she mentions she almost never sees them a second time. And even if they do meet again, they change so much it is like they became completely different people. For that exact reason, Veronica set her own rule. She does not want to have any regrets when that happens, so she forbids herself from ever saying she will do things later. Since she is being open, Quill feels no need to hold back either. He bluntly says so, that is why you always speak so directly, to the point of scaring everyone. Hearing this, she is quite taken aback. I did not expect you to think of me that way. But then, Veronica changes the subject, adding that she does not know when she might die. Quill frowns and asks her not to say such pessimistic things. But she directly refutes him, explaining she is not being pessimistic or looking to die, but simply living life to the absolute fullest right now. Suddenly, her voice softens as she looks at him with expectation. In that case, will you protect me? His past life self agreed without hesitation, promising to do so. Returning to reality, his heart aches slightly. Standing in the street, he blames himself for ultimately letting Veronica die. This time he swears he will protect her. Just look at that determination in his eyes. He is ready to uncover the truth no matter what, stalking her even closer into the darkness. She starts walking into a hidden corner behind the building. Seeing her stand before a massive iron gate makes Quill even more suspicious. No matter how he looks at it, this is extremely sketchy. Will you be alright, Veronica? I must boost my presence concealment skill immediately. A moment later, Veronica steps inside, and, naturally, Quill cannot just stand outside and has to follow her. Crouching by a corner, he hears another voice speaking to her. We have been waiting for you. A cloaked figure stands before her, apologizing deeply for calling her to such a shady place. But this is an extremely important matter. The cloaked person pulls down their hood to reveal vibrant purple hair, revealing it is indeed Anrut, looking incredibly scheming. Now about the item we discussed. Veronica silently stares, then pulls out the red stone, completely shocking Anrut. Is this it? She quickly grabs the stone but frowns slightly a second later. Holding it up, Anrut gets filled with absolute joy, whispering how wonderful it is. She then turns back to flatter her. You are indeed very talented. Yes, of course. I have always believed in that. This is when Quill begins hearing the exact information he wants. With this item, the ultimate desire of our church can be met. Anrut cannot help but leak their grand plan, claiming they are getting much closer to the Red Moon. Hearing this, Quill's face darkens as he immediately connects the dots. I knew it. This whole secret mystery is directly tied to the Red Moon and this church. Talk about terrible luck. The concealment spell Quill is using starts to run out. Just a second later, Veronica senses something unusual, while Quill only now realizes what is happening. Damn it, my presence concealment skill has officially expired. Without a second thought, Veronica draws her sword and charges straight at him. Quill can only stare in absolute terror with wide eyes. Terrified, Quill can only scream out her name, desperately calling for Professor Veronica, but she stands firmly in front of him, her body trembling slightly as she shields him. You really followed me all this way, did you not? Just then, heavy footsteps echo from the distance. I already told you that you had to come alone, did I not? Holding a quartz crystal, Anrut sighs with fake pity. She's pretty disappointed that Veronica went and broke their little agreement. She honestly thought their cult was about to gain a new follower. Hearing this, Veronica coldly slashes her sword downward in response. Seeing that sharp blade, the cultist quickly changes her tune, nervously claiming this whole thing is just a little accident. Oh my, it seems I jumped to conclusions way too quickly. In that case, as long as we eliminate that witness over there, our cult will gladly welcome you. Quill flinches at the threat, but Veronica points her sword straight ahead, flatly refusing. She states she only came to investigate. Anrut narrows her eyes, sizing her up as Veronica adds that she has absolutely no intention of sacrificing her precious student. Sensing the thick tension, Quill hurriedly stands up, apologizing to Professor Veronica while demanding to know what is actually going on. Veronica immediately turns to interrupt him, admitting it is her own fault for not explaining everything sooner. On that day, she sensed something strange in the woods. What she discovered was a rampaging monster, its eyes flashing with a cold light. Right there under the damp grass, she spotted a mysterious red stone shining back at her. Veronica picked up the stone, feeling a strange energy. Squeezing it tight, she channeled a bit of her mana into the gem. The moment she did, it began to emit a deep glowing red light. That was when Anrut stepped out of the shadows as if she had been waiting forever. Surprised to find a potential follower in such a place, she clasped her hands in prayer, claiming it was divine guidance for her mission. Instantly alert, Veronica demands to know who she is. Anrut just smiles warmly as she steps closer, saying she would love to share everything, but their cult has strict rules. Raising a single finger, she whispers that if Veronica wants to learn about the stone, she must meet 2 conditions. Before the professor can even reply, she rambles on. First, she must keep making the red stone shine to prove her worthy qualification. Second, she must tell absolutely no one, arriving at the designated location completely alone to prove her trustworthiness. Placing a hand on her chest with fake regret, Anrut apologizes for putting her through such a test. Veronica kept her eyes locked on her as Anrut expressed hope they would become allies. Back in the present, the professor flatly refused the offer, explaining that she had planned to infiltrate the cult to investigate them from within. Recalling her past attitude toward Quill, she thought she made it quite clear that she would protect him, but she coldly turned to leave anyway. She told him not to worry, repeating her promise that she would never let anything bad happen. Behind her, Quill trembles slightly, muttering that a simple promise is not nearly enough of an explanation. Veronica softly apologizes, admitting he is absolutely right. Finally letting out a heavy sigh, Quill confesses he is just glad she is not actually a bad person. Standing right opposite them, Anrut slowly interrupts, calling out Professor Veronica. She sighs that if her wish to join was just a lie, she is now feeling pretty disappointed. With those final words, she drops the red gem right into the water with a loud splash. In a deeply regretful voice, she mutters that she never expected to eliminate someone so incredibly talented. Quill immediately senses that something is horribly wrong. Did she really just throw that stone into the water? Deep beneath the surface, the gem suddenly begins to glow with a bright red light. And here comes the real chaos. Down in the deep abyss, the giant Todogako snails slowly wake up as some dark force takes control of the surrounding beasts. The water suddenly boils with fury, and a swarm of roaring monsters rises. Backing away, Anrut claps her hands in pure excitement. She cheers that it is absolutely marvelous, noting that even within her cult, summoners who can grant such wild power are extremely rare. Staring at the massive beasts, Quill is completely stunned. Are these water dragons really this strong? Veronica calmly counts them up, spotting 8 of the beasts in total. Quill quickly volunteers to handle half of them, but she flatly refuses and leaps forward. Gripping her sword, Veronica tells him it is completely unnecessary. Magical energy erupts from her blade as she spins around, unleashing her devastating hurricane slash technique. A barrage of razor-sharp wind blades flies toward the water dragons, leaving Quill absolutely frozen in shock. He thinks she is truly worthy of being a professor. Right then, Veronica's eyes flash with a cold glint as the massive body of a water dragon collapses to the ground. She quickly leaps backward to dodge a counterattack. Quill runs over in a panic, asking if she is okay. Catching her breath, Veronica nods, but she quickly stares in shock at the still wriggling monster parts. This is impossible. It took that massive hit and it is still alive? No matter how fast its regeneration is, how can it still be moving right after its head was completely chopped off? Brand new heads sprout back instantly, shocking them both. Normal healing magic could never pull off a recovery like this. Unsheathing his daggers to join the fray, Quill realizes that something is deeply wrong here. Out of nowhere, one of the water dragons lunges straight at him. As its head slams into the ground, Quill barely dodges. He spins around and slashes with his dagger, but the blade gets stuck in its rubbery flesh. Trembling, he struggles to pull it back out. This squishy body is exactly what he expected. Wrapping his arms tightly around the massive beast, Quill yells out to warn her. He tells Professor Veronica that he wants to try a little trick and begs her to step back. Without a single word, Veronica quickly backs away, warning him not to overexert himself. Activating his physical reinforcement to release his absolute limits, Quill yells back that he is only pushing himself a tiny bit. Digging his heels into the dirt, Quill grips the dragon's slimy scales and literally hoists the entire monster into the air. This exposes the giant Todogako snail hiding underneath. Urging it to come out, he finally lets Veronica see the truth of what they are fighting. She honestly thought the beast could survive being decapitated. Staring at the massive Todogako snail, a cold shiver runs down her spine. It turns out that those heads were actually just its muscular feet. This massive creature is just a giant mollusk. As the heavy squelch of the Todogako echoes, familiar footsteps approach. Anrut sighs with a hand over her chest, amazed that the young boy managed to see through the illusion of the dragon in a mere flash. Then she frowns, muttering that it is actually not wonderful at all. Raising her voice, she explains that while their cult does not prioritize combat, leaving the two of them alive would be pretty troublesome. Realizing she might violate the cult's orders if this drags on, the mysterious cultist slowly pulls out a glowing staff. She boldly declares that she, Anrut, will take it upon herself to personally put an end to both of their lives right here. Quill already has a plan mapped out in his head. He asks Professor Veronica to take care of the giant mollusk for him, explaining that her sharp wind magic sword will slice through that rubbery body way better than his physical attacks ever could. Still feeling quite anxious, Veronica agrees to the plan but insists she cannot let her precious student face danger alone. Suddenly, Quill reaches out and grabs her hand tightly. A sudden surge of physical enhancement magic flows from his body directly into hers. Smiling warmly, Quill promises he will be right back after dealing with the cultist, leaving Veronica completely dazed by his sudden protective warning. A soft smile plays on her lips as she whispers that she really has an incredibly bold student. Stepping forward with her blade drawn, Veronica agrees to the plan but warns him to watch out for one specific thing, whispering a quiet secret. Hearing her quiet warning, Quill's eyes widen in sheer disbelief. But Veronica quickly points out that he himself already proved that such a thing is not impossible. Realizing the truth, he immediately dashes straight toward his target. Anrut stands calmly as Quill approaches, smiling smugly at his impressive speed. As he prepares to swing his daggers with full force, she effortlessly deflects the sudden incoming strike without breaking a single sweat. Quill is slightly stunned that she managed to block his blow. Watching him unleash a barrage of furious slashes, Anrut grins with excitement, commenting that he seems to possess some pretty incredible talent himself. Her eyes dart to the side and both of them temporarily back off. Touching a shallow cut on her cheek, Anrut gently wipes the fresh blood with her fingertips, muttering with a sigh that the little scratch actually hurts quite a bit. She releases a faint glow of healing magic from her fingertips to mend the wound. Stepping closer, Veronica notes that the stone has passive mana flowing through it with a wavelength that behaves exactly like offensive spellcasting. Realizing how Anrut healed her cheek, Veronica explains that their enemy is just like him, a combat healer who weaponizes recovery spells. This sudden revelation leaves Quill standing there completely stunned for a brief moment. Mocking the idea of inventing combat healing himself, Anrut proudly lifts her chin. She laughs, asking how someone like her could ever come up with such a revolutionary technique on her own. Her magic staff begins to emit a brilliant light. With a simple wave of her arm, the ground nearby violently explodes into pieces as she boasts that even she can wield this power thanks to the sacred teachings of her cult. Q stares intensely at the staff. So it really existed back then, a combat style meant for healers. He remembers his past self filled with deep regret. He should have taken up the fight with his own hands. Q grips his dagger with trembling hands. Just how far have these cultists gone? Right in front of him, Anrut speaks up, saying he seems to have natural talent from the start, and she is actually quite jealous of him. Thinking of a mysterious figure, she chuckles darkly and says she wants him to meet him. Then she asks with pure excitement if Q has any actual interest in joining their sinister cult. Q cuts her off in pure anger, asking if she is joking. He tightens his fists and mutters that he will never join their side. His eyes suddenly flash with a fierce red light not even in a million lifetimes. A flash of light passes before Anrut as her dark energy begins to overflow, whispering how truly unfortunate it is. She springs forward with insane speed, swinging her staff with a twisted and distorted smile on her face. So in the end, she still has to destroy him. Q grits his teeth to block this sudden, devastating blow, trembling under her massive, enhanced physical strength. When used like this, its raw power is pretty insane. Q recalls their mysterious appearance and that creepy red stone from before. With their contrasting physical states and energies, his eyes flash with deep suspicion. Healing magic versus offensive magic, there is still way too much he does not understand. Anrut is still desperately itching for a fight, but he just needs to interrogate her to get some real answers. Gritting his teeth, he pushes her back with a sudden burst of strength, throwing her off. Maybe this is how he can finally stop that tragedy from happening. Seizing the window, Quill spins around and lands a direct kick to her chest, sending Anrut flying back. Yet she just smirks with pure, unhinged excitement. At this rate, it really looks like I am going to lose. Anrut suddenly raises her staff high. With the cult backing her up, that creepy red stone instantly flashes. Her reinforcee turn blood red, as one of her arms swells into a monstrous giant limb. Look at those veins popping on her face, this is getting seriously creepy. Yet, Anrut screams in delight, calling it wonderful. Q immediately realizes something is off. This monster's power goes way beyond normal healing enhancement. Q demands to know who taught her that wicked magic. In response, Anrut places her hand respectfully over her heart, thanking the guidance of their sacred cult. She remembers standing lost in the crowd. Until that moment, she had lived a completely aimless life, caring about absolutely nothing. She had to heal injuries while being constantly yelled at. She was hired as a basic healer, mindlessly obeying some arrogant leader. Those days were incredibly dull. With a self-deprecating laugh, she says that, as a healer, he will eventually understand. Her words remind him of those ungrateful people. The world is full of souls not worth saving. That was when she received the red stone. The cult granted her power and enlightenment, her voice growing more ecstatic. From that day on, her life truly began to shine. Gripping his dagger, Quill snaps back that whatever she realized, what she's doing right now is pure evil. He shouts in frustration, warning her that countless innocent people will die at this rate. Anrut casually blocks his incoming strike, coldly replying that she does not care in the slightest. Closing in, she whispers that if the cult allows it, it is fine. With a heavy blow, Anrut sends him crashing into the wall, making Q cough up blood. She walks over step by step, mocking him about justice supposedly winning in the end. Quill hangs his head in silence. How could so many good people, including Master Veronica, have lost their lives to such an empty monster? Q grits his teeth, refusing to give up, and his sheer determination makes Anrut freeze up. Holding his injured arm, he slowly stands back up, shocking her completely. She gasps, asking how he can still stand, but despite his severe wounds, green energy swirls around his arm, healing them instantly. Anrut cannot help but wonder if he just healed himself instantly. What kind of insane recovery power is that? Q holds his head, muttering that he will never forgive her. Sweeping his hair back to reveal a piercing gaze, he promises to make her suffer a fate worse than death. Furious, Anrut charges at him. She screams that she will obliterate him instantly so he cannot recover. Quill swings his fist with massive strength, sending shockwaves through the entire room. Anrut cannot block his overwhelming counterattack. Q smirks, mocking her by asking if she is already crying out. He spins around, throws another heavy fist, and declaring he is far from done. Her eyes widen in pure terror at his speed. Before she can react, Quill lands a brutal punch right to her face. Blood sprays from her mouth and nose as she is sent flying, crashing onto the ground, motionless. Quill walks over. Is she knocked out already? But wait, he suddenly remembers Master Veronica. Right now she is locked in combat with that beast, Okoto. Her eyes flash cold. With a single sword swing, she slices off the monster's tentacles. Radiating powerful energy, Veronica sheathes her blade as the minced pieces of flesh rain down. Smiling at him, she asks if he finished his side too. Veronica looks back, explaining that the monster had high recovery powers, so it took her some time. Q realizes that monster was actually the tougher opponent. Classic Veronica. He turns back and pats Anrut on the face. As she opens her eyes, Q greets her with a bright smile, demanding she spill everything. Q pins Anrut down, causing her agonizing pain. Before she can even process what is happening, a sharp dagger is already pressed against her throat. Even at death's door, she stubbornly tells him not to make such a scary face. Q replies coldly that it depends on her. He directly interrogates her, demanding to know what this cult is. She vaguely mutters that a believer is never allowed to reveal secrets to outsiders. Then, shockingly, she grabs his blade and starts chanting crazy, unhinged words. She chants about dedicating her life to the cult, then maniacally plunges the blade into her own throat. "Long live the cult," she screams. Q stands frozen in absolute shock at her sudden suicide. Even as she dies, she remains obsessed, claiming she took her own life to protect the cult's secrets. She truly believes her soul will be guided to the world her Lord Leos desires. Anrut dies with a satisfied smile, but suddenly her eyes snap open. She wakes up feeling incredibly clear-headed, unable to even find peace in death. She touches her neck and realizes her fatal wound is completely gone. Anrut is utterly bewildered because she clearly stabbed her own throat. The agony of the cold blade and gushing blood felt entirely real. Hugh confirms her bizarre attempt, mockingly saying he was surprised she actually ended her own life. He admits he underestimated her extreme devotion, but smiles and tells her he already healed her. Anrut refuses to believe it, arguing that she should have died almost instantly. Quill calmly explains that almost instantly means she was not completely dead yet. He says he can heal that, but she protests it is impossible for any normal healer. Q snaps back that he is far from normal. He proudly declares he will become the greatest healer in the world. Resuming his interrogation, he warns her that if he can save someone on the brink of death, he can also torture her to that exact edge. Hearing those terrifying words, Anrut falls dead silent. Realizing the horror of her situation, her eyes fill with pure panic. Q leans in with a dark smile, asking if she is ready to talk now. Fear is written all over her face as she worries she will have no choice but to talk. But the very next second, her pupils dilate as if she has been hypnotized. Plunged into a bizarre dark space, a haunting voice commands her to die for their cause. As tears pour down her panicked face, Q's expression instantly hardens as he senses the sudden danger. Anrut shivers in agonizing pain, her eyes rolling back into her head. Veronica instantly senses something is very wrong here. "Back off, Quill. Get away from her." Quill quickly lets her go and leaps backward. In the blink of an eye, her head and limbs completely evaporate. Both of them watch in absolute horror as her body shrivels into a dried-up corpse right before their eyes. Quill rushes over, unable to believe what he is seeing. What happened? He tries to heal her right away. "Wait, do not die yet." But seeing his desperate struggle, Veronica can only look on, knowing it is useless. Quill finally stops his hands and begins to analyze the situation. Her mana vanished in an instant under some insanely powerful curse. Endless questions race through Quill's mind, who could be pulling the strings. Veronica asks him if he is alright, and he replies with a sigh that he is fine. Still, he feels a lingering guilt. He missed a golden opportunity to get information, blaming himself for bringing her along. But Veronica is incredibly kind, saying as long as the Academy students are safe, nothing else matters. Veronica gives him a gentle smile, telling him they should head back. But on the way home, Quill keeps grumbling that with the red stone destroyed, they are left with absolutely zero clues. Keeping her cool, Veronica explains that uncovering a cult and the red stone that drives monsters wild is already a major win. After all, you can never defend yourself against threats you do not even know exist. He has to agree with her. She is right. Compared to his past life, he is definitely making progress. At this rate, he will surely succeed. Even so, many burning questions still haunt Quill. Taking advantage of the quiet walk, Veronica opens up, admitting she is actually glad she joined the field training. Then she lets him in on a little secret. She actually insisted on joining this field training. It was because she was deeply worried about him, making their class the only one with 2 instructors tagging along. Finally, some of Quill's confusion begins to clear up, so Veronica only realized the existence of that cult in this current lifetime, but it is still not enough, prompting him to ask another question. Come to think of it, he always wanted to ask how she came up with using passive mana to attack. Veronica honestly explains that she comes from a merchant family, giving her plenty of chances to interact with both healers and battle mages. Yet, Quill feels there is more to it. If it were that simple, magic research would have advanced way faster by now. Hearing his words, Veronica is equally surprised and puzzled. Really? Well, she is not quite sure either. Suddenly, a wave of familiarity washes over her. It feels as if someone had told her those exact same words when she was just a little girl. While Quill keeps pondering, they arrive outside a bakery. Could that mysterious person be connected to the cult? Veronica wants to drop by, letting Quill set aside those heavy thoughts for now. "Do you want to grab some bread?" Her question snaps him right back to reality. Smiling, he happily agrees. Sure. Just like that, the massive mysteries are left waiting for another day. He gained new power to escape his doom but got scolded for sneaking out without permission. Elsewhere, an eerie silence fills a dark room. Anrut sits perfectly still at a table, but she is completely dead. Snakebite marks cover her cold neck, and get this, a sinister voice suddenly echoes out, asking if that hard worker is already dead. A creepy girl holding a serpent eagerly takes up the task. I will do it," she mutters, staring at the red stone in her hand with complete obsession. If it is an order from the cult, she obeys. A few days pass and Quill is now sparring with Veronica. He keeps asking for updates. "Did you find anything on the cult?" She quickly replies that information is scarce. Despite being a major cult, they seem to be keeping an extremely low profile. Quill sighs in disappointment, wishing he could head down to the town himself to investigate. But Veronica strictly reminds him that students need official permission to leave the academy. Veronica emphasizes that a student's sole duty is to study. Quill just smiles. He knows, but he hates sitting around doing nothing. Suddenly, he channels all his mana into his feet, moving with insane speed to dodge her strike. Out of nowhere, Quill slips right behind her, planning to visit Professor Jer, who is the top monster expert. He thought it would be an easy flank, but Veronica blocks him effortlessly. He wants to use the off-campus study program, but she remains completely skeptical. She points out that he needs flawless theory grades to even apply for that. As she speaks, she launches a heavy strike that forces Quill to parry. Do you even qualify? Pushing her back confidently, Quill boasts that his theory score was actually the absolute highest this term. Hearing this, Veronica lowers her sword with a sigh of relief, feeling quite proud to have such an outstanding student. He is getting pretty reliable, but Quill knows he still cannot afford to get complacent. I still have a long way to go, but I can finally tell how much you have been holding back. That is good, she replies. Right then, Veronica decides to offer him a reward. In that case, it is time for you to choose your core. Quill looks completely confused, questioning what a core even is. She patiently explains that he has the rare creativity to weaponize healing magic. However, finding his signature style and refining it will make his combat highly stable, making his diverse options shine even brighter. But Quill blindly blurts out that he will just choose Professor Veronica instead. Veronica keeps her focus, reminding him that she can only teach magic swordsmanship. Is he truly fine with that? There is no need to rush a decision, she adds before making a suggestion. For now, they should go meet Professor Jer first. Quill finally gets it, agreeing to the plan. Soon he begins his journey to meet the professor, enjoying the beautiful weather despite traveling far outside the town. This trip is turning out even better than he hoped, a perfect day for off-campus study. This program allows students to learn directly from renowned experts outside the academy walls. At our academy, we usually visit active mages on the front lines, but it is also a great chance to experience the most advanced academic fields. Professor Jer was a famous monster researcher, even in Quill's past life. His achievements were so legendary that the kingdom awarded him a medal. The more Quill thinks about it, the more he admires the scholar. The scholar lives incredibly far from any civilization, making Quill wonder if monsters ever attack him out here. But check this out, suddenly he senses extreme danger and looks straight up. A massive avalanche of giant boulders rains down from above like a waterfall. Snapping back to reality, Quill realizes there are indeed other dangers out here, using all his speed to dodge the falling stones. Suddenly, a giant boulder zeroes in on him like a homing missile. Quill quickly focuses all his mana into his hands and strikes, slicing the massive rock into tiny harmless pieces. With the danger cleared, he catches his breath, but it is not over yet. He senses another projectile speeding towards him at high velocity. It is a dart, and Quill deftly catches it mid-air. He inspects it closely. Is it an arrow? Right then, two strangers walk up. The black-haired guy casually apologizes with a terrible excuse, claiming a monster trap went off by mistake. Quill does not want to deal with these creeps and prepares to leave, warning them that he almost died. But the black-haired guy just sneers while the blonde youth tries to act more polite. Explaining they are hunters who rarely see travelers here, the blonde promises they will be careful next time. Quill sighs in frustration and continues walking, telling them to just learn from their mistake. We are in a rush, so do not let it happen again, he says. But their politeness was just a facade. The blonde shows his true colors, laughing that he learned his lesson as they both prepare to ambush Quill. Next time they will finish the job properly, they boast. But Quill simply ducks to easily evade their strike. Watching more closely, he finds the perfect opening and kicks both of them right off the cliff. The two survivors desperately cling to the cliff edge to survive. Quill looks down at them with absolute contempt, noticing the stolen bracelets and rings that clearly do not fit them. Without a doubt, those are stolen goods. Quill's voice turns freezing cold as he slowly steps closer to the edge. Funny, he remarks, because lately he has been wondering if there is a truly effective way to rehabilitate bad people. Squeezing the blonde kid's jaw, a brilliant idea pops up. Glaring with cold bloodlust, he thinks about brainwashing them. The blonde guy immediately starts trembling hard from head to toe. This black-haired punk can barely even look after himself, yet he still has the nerve to butt in and scream, "Stop!" Tossing him violently onto the dirt. The protagonist bluntly refuses. I am not stopping. His terrifying smile is more than enough to scare a ghost right out of that kid. I am not stopping, since I gave you a second chance already. Saying that, he turns back to squeeze the guy's mouth. The black-haired kid trembles all over, but more importantly, the bag they brought seems to have some living creature locked inside.